might make
There you go, Michael.
a special meeting to potentially lighten the load.
I think that'd be fine if we did a special meeting for interviews. We could
Okay.
probably arrange that. Yeah.
All right, well, maybe
Yep.
we can talk about that under upcoming business. and
absolutely.
see.
Yep.
Any other questions for the city manager? All right, hearing and seeing none, that takes us back up to approve a resolution honoring Louis Americo Poli, the first Italian-born Major League Baseball player.
Okay, resolution 2023-05, a resolution recognizing former Barre resident Lou Poli, the first Italian-born person to play Major League Baseball. Whereas Lou Americo Poli was born on July 9, 1901 in Baveno, Italy, and emigrated with his family to Barre, Vermont. And whereas Poli was a standout Spalding High School player and transferred to Goddard Seminary Prep School, where he continued to excel, including by striking out 28 batters in a 10-inning game against Cushing Academy on June 3rd, 1921. And whereas Poli made his major league debut in 1932 with the New York Yankees, a team that in addition to Poli featured Poli's bridge partners and teammates, Babe Ruth and Lou Gehrig, among others, and swept the Chicago Cubs in that year's World Series. And whereas the National Baseball Hall of Fame in Cooperstown, New York, recognizes Poli as the first Italian-born baseball player to play in the major leagues and remains one of only 7 Italian-born persons to ever play in the major leagues. That's fascinating. Whereas Poli carved out an impressive minor league pitching career, compiling a record of 263 wins against 226 losses and a career earned run average of 4.68. And whereas during his professional career, Poli played for teams in Harrisburg, Pennsylvania, St. Paul, Minnesota, Louisville, Kentucky, Milwaukee, Wisconsin, Montreal, Canada, Chattanooga, Knoxville, Tennessee, and he finished his career by throwing a no-hitter during the final game of the season for the Jersey City Giants in 1945. And whereas Poli lived his final years in Vermont and died on December 19, 2000 at the age of 99, and was at the time of his passing the oldest living former major leaguer, and he was laid to rest in historic Hope Cemetery. And whereas the life and accomplishments of former Barre resident Lou Poli will be celebrated on Saturday, July 8, 2023 by the Vermont Mountaineers baseball team, and a permanent exhibit featuring photos and recognition plaques will be placed at the Mutua Italian American Club, where Poli was a member for over 50 years, to celebrate and recognize Poli's many career accomplishments. Now therefore be it resolved by the Barre City Council that the City of Barre commends the remarkable achievements of Lou Americo Poli in Major League Baseball and recognizes his contributions to the rich history of this city. Be it further resolved that the City Council does hereby declare Saturday, July 8, 2023 to be Lou Poli Appreciation Day, to express our most profound appreciation for his accomplishments and legacy, by order of the City Council this 23rd day of May, 2023.
Mr. Mayor, I would move that that resolution 2023-05 be approved as presented.
Motion by Councilor Lozon, is there a second?
Second.
Second by Councilor Deering. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
The resolution is adopted.
Do you want to?
Brian.
I want to thank all of you for this recognition, and last minute I was able to get through to a grandnephew or great-nephew of Poli, so you've got the Poli family, the Cacapos, and the Campos that are all related to Crip. Wow.
Oh my
My grandmother Ida was Crip's sister, and we're very proud. Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, would you mind? Nobody leaves without a complimentary photo.
Yeah, there we go.
Here it is, yes.
Yes, as in they flatter you. Depends on how you want to spell it.
Big smiles. Big smiles. I'll get it. Get it all.
Something I can't pronounce.
Thank you, Tom.
Oh, you're welcome.
That's what happens when I don't read the things in advance that I'm supposed to read. I go, wow.
Who knew?
Yeah,
It's
that was
an impressive record,
amazing, yeah.
all right. That will take us to visitors and communication. This is an opportunity to speak to an item that is not on the agenda. If you're here to speak to an item that is on the agenda, you can raise your hand and I'll recognize you when we take up that matter of business. Is there anyone here that would like to speak to a general item of communication? All right, hearing and seeing none, that takes us to our new business. So we have volunteer appointments, reappointments. So one proposed reappointment to the Cow Pasture Committee, Jeanette Schaefer.
Who is online with us as well.
And I would just share with council, it was on the matrix you received last night, but Jeanette is one of 2 applicants for 3 seats, so I didn't intend for council to act, but if council chooses to, I just wanted to you to know the landscape of that committee.
So Jeanette, if you would like to introduce yourself and perhaps say, talk a little bit about what you're proud of, having been on the committee for 2 years now, right?
Yeah, that's right. Thank you so much. My name is Jeanette Schaefer. Thank you for also slotting me in on this very busy evening and for giving me this opportunity. I would like to request to be able to continue so that I can see the work through that we'll be able to do in the next 2 years, hopefully, from the $50,000 URSA grant that I helped write. So I'm one of 3 members of a subcommittee writing grants, and we achieved the $50,000 URSA grant 2 years ago now, I think, year and a half ago. And I would love to see that work now in action, now that we are hopefully finally getting the funds. And I'm excited to watch that happen and to continue to work on getting other funding as well. I am also really proud of the communications we've had with council and the mayor, and really appreciate the support we've been getting from all of you in adding more to this very crucial green space that we have. I'm a city resident. I work in the city. I use the cow pasture all the time. And it's really important to preserve the land up on the hill that is so precious to our town. So that is all I have to say.
Great. Well, thanks for that overview, Jeanette. And could you remind council a little bit about what the URSA will fund? It's going to be improvements to the main entrance, right?
Yeah, it's going to be there. Hopefully we'll be able to buy some land to preserve the parking lot that is right there. So there'll be land purchase, there'll be trail improvements, including adding a trail that is parallel to the main trail that is used by snowmobiles, so that people don't have to really be in the way of the snowmobiles in the winter. So it's a parallel one. There's going to be a bridge that will cross the stream on that parallel trail. And then we also intend on adding wayfinding signage, which we feel like we need, especially now that we have added more parcels of land.
Well, thank you for that. Are there questions from council? Councilor Stockwell.
So is there going to be additional parking space that's between Sheridan and Quinlan?
I don't think so. I think the parking that is there right now is what will be the only parking, because I think the one on Quinlan and Sheridan, that's a paper street right now, and I don't know that there's anything formal happening there.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Councilor Deering.
I've got 2 questions for you. The first one is, what projects are you currently working on within the committee that we're unaware of? You talked about doing the grants. So are there other grants or other things like that that you're currently working on within the committee?
No, not yet. We have put so much work into getting this URSA grant, and the prep for that, now that it's going, will take up a lot of our time, but we're always looking for grant opportunities that we might jump on. And of course, we would consult with City Council if we went for any additional grant funding. Other work that we're doing is more on the ground, invasives removal and things like that, and also getting school groups in there to help with invasive removal.
So you kind of touched on my second question. So what kind of projects that the Cow Pasture Committee is working on right now would they possibly lose out on without having you on that committee? Does that make sense?
Yes, it makes absolute sense. The cow pasture would probably lose out on executing this URSA grant and working on RFPs and getting people to do the work, finding the right people to do the work, and just managing the projects that now the URSA grant made available. I have a lot of project management skills. I have grant writing skills, and if I wasn't on the committee, I think the committee might lose out on those skills.
I appreciate you. Thank you.
Thank
You
you.
also have mad invasive removal skills too. So,
Yes.
right,
Mad
Councilor
focus.
So just to confirm, Mr. Manager, this is 2 applicants for 3 seats?
Yes.
At the moment?
Correct.
All right, I would make the motion to reappoint Jeanette Schaefer to the Cow Pasture Committee.
Seconds.
There's a motion by Councilor Wazazak, second by Councilor Shambo. Any further discussion?
Just wanted to thank you, Jeanette, for your service. I mean, personally, even though we have people reapplying, when committee members such as yourself have served faithfully and served the city well, I'd have a real hard time not reappointing them, even if this were a competitive type position. So thank you for that.
Thank you.
All right. If there's no further discussion, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Guys have it. You're reappointed. Thank you, Jeanette.
Thank you all. Have a good night.
So that takes us to item 9B, an update on preparations to address the end of the state's motel housing program.
So Councilor Wazazak, I have a PowerPoint. I don't know if we should test our luck, but
Oh, we're gonna have an interesting budget discussion. All righty. Give me a second.
and I'll get. I can.
Yep, give me 2 seconds. Almost there. Share screen.
God, you're good.
Look at that.
Getting there.
No matter what.
All
it's
right,
written in
hold
the-
on. Let me test. We're good.
Thank you. So we can go on to the next slide. This is really wanted to provide council with an update on a lot of work that's happened since our last meeting on preparations for the end of the hotel housing program. So we have a really broad coalition that we are engaged in planning with, and some of them are here today. We have reps from our city police department, fire, EMS departments, Erica Rail, who, in addition to being working at Another Way, doing this as a day job, is the chair of our homelessness task force. Ken Russell, similar, works at Another Way and chairs the Montpelier Homelessness Task Force. Allison Calderara at Capstone, and we have our 2 city reps, Representative Williams and Anthony, who've been participating in our coalition meetings as well. A lot of people who are not here who we've been working with, and there's a list of them that I'm not even going to go through it because there's people I'm going to forget, but you can see it's municipalities, service providers, and the state is engaged as well. So a lot of good people trying to think on how to address this issue. Next slide, Councilor Wazazak. So we've been thinking about this for a long time. I know we talked about this at our last council meeting, but before then, on April 3rd, we had our first planning meeting with municipal leaders, public safety leadership from Barre, Montpelier, and Berlin. We followed up that first meeting on May 1st with some subsequent actions. And that started to include some of our service providers. We expanded our group a bit. May 9th, we had a press conference in Montpelier, which I know many of you attended, and that was followed by a mini summit to brainstorm solutions. May 12th, Montpelier manager Bill Frazier and I met with leadership at the Agency of Human Services, and we had a planning meeting last week. We have a planning meeting tomorrow. This is an ongoing work stream for us. So we continue to be very engaged and focused on what we're going to do about this. This is a big crisis. that's coming before us. So next slide, Councilor Wasizak. What are the numbers, right? I feel like Councilor Lozon's question is always, what are the numbers? So here we go. This is, on the left there, you see some data from the state. That's a statewide view about the number of households that are currently housed in the hotels, motels. On the box on the right, you see what that impact is for us at the Washington County level. So there's 302 adults and 85 children that are being housed in 223 households. So that's essentially translates to rooms in Washington County. And that's the scope of what we are trying to figure out how to address. About 100 of those individuals will be exited in the first wave of the end of the program, and that's the adverse weather conditions provision part of the program, and the balance will be exited on June 30th. So that's what we're facing. That's what we're looking at. These numbers and these numbers are probably outdated already. This is a constantly fluctuating picture, but we've been in this ballpark for a couple of weeks now, and that's what we're planning for.
Sorry, Nicholas, just a clarifier. The 100, is that 100 people exited on the first or 100 households?
I believe it's 100 households.
Okay.
And if someone wants from the coalition needs to correct me, I'm sure they will, but that's my understanding. It's 100 households.
It's 100 people.
Oh, 100 people. I'm sorry.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Councilor Stockwell?
And does this include Good Samaritan, people who are lodged at Good Samaritan?
These are only the people who are in
Motels.
the motels. Yes, correct. Yeah, and Good Samaritan is full.
Yeah.
There's just no room there. So thank you. I think that was that, I don't know if that was Rick or Ken, but thank you for the correction there.
That was Joe.
And
Joe, thank you, Joe.
I think both statements, Mr. Manager, were correct, because I believe on May 31st, there will be no children or parents.
That's
exited.
correct.
That will be until June. So
Yeah.
it just so happens that you're both correct, because in this unique case, household equates to people.
Yeah.
So it's 1-to-1.
Well, it's one
Oh,
of the,
okay,
yeah.
okay.
So next slide, Councilor Wazizak. Thank you. And so what is our response, right? So, well, we've been, we can help a limited number of individuals. If there's no other capacity stood up, there's a very limited ability to help very few individuals. But you can see here, even I have a 208 households, that's already outdated. That's because the status changes, on a regular basis. But we cannot, if we do nothing, we cannot absorb the people coming out of the programs. So what are our asks of the state? We've talked about staffing. I mean, this isn't new. This is a challenge we have at the city level. We're all trying to hire from the same groups of people. Whether it's project management, organizing, outreach people to the hotels and to these individuals, security for where these people will be staffed and housed, or where they'll be camping, and support staff. This is a population that has higher needs, right? A lot of them have medical needs. Many of them suffer mental health issues that they need help with. And so there's a support element that's needed as well. And we are not a social service agency. The city of Barre, and none of us are, Montpelier, any municipality in Vermont. We provide the most basic government services. We do not provide social services. And so that's where, and our partners that do, the Good Samaritans, Capstones of the world, they have no capacity to take this on. So that's why we need the state to really help us here. Land and buildings, we need space. So if the policy is going to be camping, where's that going to happen? I've talked about this, we've talked a little bit about this at the council meeting, that Barre's 4 square miles. We struggle to site a public works garage, as we know. If there was good land for camping, we probably would have built housing on it already. So this is, the parks we have are not really suitable. The natural lands we have are not as well. If you've been up to the cow pasture, you can tell that the only places you could probably pitch a tent comfortably would be on the trails or in the meadow, which is a highly trafficked area. And they're not close to services. They're not close. There's no power up there for people who need to be charging devices, who have medical needs that need to be charging and filling oxygen tanks or whatever other needs they have. There's no facilities up there for showering, using the bathroom. So these are not really suitable spaces. And Bill Frazier is really more eloquent on this than me, but municipalities do not own land for the sake of it. all the land and buildings we own have a distinct public service. And so by expanding the use, we are creating an inherent conflict. And that's where I think this is really challenging. We are being asked to choose between some of our recreational needs versus the needs of someone to be able to put their head down at night. But that's just the reality, that Barre is not, one of the assets we don't have is land, excess land. And so we really need the state, if the policy is going to be camping, to help us with that. They own campgrounds. They could provide season passes. And so that's one of the things we've asked of the state. And those two final bullets could really be lumped together. Really, we need to make some capital investments, and HOP funding is probably a resource for it. But I refer to it. We need places for people to go to the bathroom. We need places for people to shower. We need, can some of the providers be given resources to transport people if they have opportunities to go to other parts of the state where they have a housing option? And so HOP funding can be part of that solution. And then there at the bottom, you can see that the state budget negotiators from the House, I think, really pulled together $12.5 million to help us do this. And so we are glad that there are some resources to do that. We received an invitation from the Department of Children and Families to start submitting letters of interest for things that we need. And we are, luckily, our coalition's been working on that diligently. So we are all set to go on that. And so we're grateful that there's going to be some sort of state resources to help create some of this capacity that we need.
So just more, sorry, I don't I typically save my questions, but I think in this context, it's better to go as we go.
Yep.
So what you just said about the coalition submitting letters, so you're working with all of our partners and the other municipalities to take, as you know, the mayor was talking about a couple weeks ago, a centralized approach. Like
Yes.
we need two of the same facilities in both Barre and Montpelier.
Right.
So,
We all need
Okay.
toilets, we all need portable showers. We put in a request, our letter, we submitted a sign-on letter essentially that's going to become a letter of interest to say this is what we need, and we'll work through a grant agreement essentially with the state that says who's going to own it, and then we'll have it. And our understanding from the state, I want to give the state credit, they've really moved quickly on that. They've told us they're going to move on a rolling basis. So we're grateful that these resources will hopefully be made available in time to help us respond. And then the next slide is really what's our municipal response here locally. So we have indicated to the state, we've signaled to the state that we are open to Barre playing part of what we can do is we have facilities on the Hill that could open a temporary emergency shelter. As we discussed at our last meeting, the Odd is our emergency response shelter normally. We're actually, after working through this with staff, we're really focusing on the BOR, which happens to be for this time of year, a better facility to host a shelter for numerous reasons. So we've signaled to the state that, look, Barre can play its part. We know that this is a regional approach and what can we help with, and this is something we can help with, but it has to be under the right conditions. And that's only if, as I list here, the state fully staffs, fully secures, fully mitigates the impact on the civic center complex. And I think under no circumstances can we extend this beyond September 1. This is really difficult every time I say it, but that is a revenue generating facility up there for us. Talking about recreational needs, that's where Spalding High School plays their hockey games. That's where kids learn to play Black Bears hockey. And we just realistically cannot become a long-term shelter provider. So those are the conditions we're really looking at to make sure that we can make the BOR available. I know Montpelier is looking, they're doing a study to see what they can do with their rec center to make that a space as well. Many providers have made camping equipment available to people who will be losing housing, but we've talked about the challenges of that happening in Barre. That's really a place where the state could be helpful. I just don't think Barre is a solution on the camping front, but we can really be a solution with the BOR under those right conditions.
Mr. Stokel?
And from your conversations with the AHS, how likely, what's the probability of fully staffs, fully secures, and fully mitigates impact?
I'm hopeful that that'll happen. I think with the resources that were put aside in the budget, that 12.5 million, that it's made it more realistic for that to be for that to come true.
And if So September 1st happens, but there really isn't a plan and there is no place to put the people that are there. Does then the city evict them, or what's the consequence? Or do we fine in some way the state of Vermont and say for every additional day, they are required to pay us X amount of money? It still seems like it leaves us in a place where we are either running a perpetual, huge homeless shelter, or we're turning people out on the street, unless we can make the state do that.
Yeah,
Want
I
me to let
think,
you off the hook on that?
yeah, please.
That building, if you look at the heat that is in that building, it's a radiant propane heat that's in the ceiling. It's adequate in the summer months. It will, if it's 40 degrees, it will heat the building to 60, 65. But in the winter months, after September 1st, when the temperature drops to 20 or 30, you simply can't heat that building to a comfortable temperature. That it's an ice rink, and we don't heat it to a comfortable temperature in the winter months.
Yeah.
So it actually wouldn't be a great option in the winter months. All of the other things that the manager had mentioned aside, physically, it's not an adequate building.
Yeah, and the reason, and Councilor Lowe's not exactly right, and the reason we've looked at it as an option just now for the summer months is because it's an easier facility to isolate. If you've been there to Labyrinth of passageways, and it connects to the Alumni Hall where we have people working, we have summer camps that are run out of there. So just from a safety perspective, for privacy perspective, for the people who are there, who would be sheltered, the BOR is a good solution for the summer, but as Councilor Lozon mentioned, it would become inadequate quite quickly. And that's, I think, a lot, those 4 sub-bullets there are, I would really say non-negotiables, all of them together. We just cannot put Barre in a situation where one of our key civic buildings has become a long-term shelter. So.
Mr. Manager, is there any way that we can build in a trend? I hate to say that but is there a way that there can be some sort of transition plan built into this? Because, I think that to give people an opportunity to have a house is important, to be housed. But we give them that September 1st deadline, and then we're there again. Because if we haven't put a transition place in place, then what are we really working towards? And I feel like we've kind of been going over this for the last couple of years, and now we're at the end where we're in a crisis mode. And I feel like this is going to turn into, if we as a city are able to offer these resources September 1st, we're going to be back into crisis mode.
Yeah, no, that's absolutely right, Councilor Deering, that we've gone through this a couple of times. This program's been extended a couple of times, and we've been already near the point of this crisis hitting. Luckily, it's been extended, and doesn't look like there's an extension on the horizon here. I think that's really a responsibility of a social service agency response, which we just do not have. We have really one person who would qualify as a social worker on staff, which is Brooke, who does amazing work. She just cannot house 400 people. And so that's where we really need the state to help, us and to help our partners who are also struggling with capacity. And actually, this is a good opportunity. I invited some of our partners from Capstone. I know our representatives are here. I believe Ken and Erica are here as well, and they might have something to add on this particular question, but also invite them to join the conversation if they have something to add, because my presentation's.
Okay, yeah, we were just waiting for your presentation to be done, so let me stop the sharing. And we had, just in order, Lisa had her hand up first, and then Erica, and then Ken.
Lisa Leota.
Yep, thanks, Teddy. I wanted to just say that I think the idea of season passes for state parks is a creative idea, but I don't think it's a realistic one. From 2011 through 2018, I was a state park ranger employed by the state of Vermont, managing a day use park. Vermont State Parks sells season passes for day use only, which means you can only be there during the park's open hours, typically from 9 or 10 in the morning until sunset. And visitors who come for day use, if you have a season pass or if you just pay for admission, aren't allowed to use the showers. The showers and washing facilities are reserved for folks who are there camping. And if you're going to camp at a Vermont State Park, you must make reservations. And currently, the state parks only allow camping reservations in 2-week periods. So you can go to a state park and camp for 2 weeks, and then you have to leave for a day and then come back, and you might get another reservation for another 2 weeks. But particularly since the onset of COVID, outdoor recreation has soared. And most state parks are booked for camping sites 11 months in advance. And I think another problem with a state park solution is that state parks are located in remote areas. They're typically not near food or hospitals or any resources whatsoever. And many of them, you can't even get cell service. So what's problematic with that is also getting folks to and from the state parks. And again, I think it's a creative idea, but I don't think it's something that we should count on as coming to fruition. And thank you. I just wanted to add that.
Thank you. And Teddy, you said next up is Erica, and then I'll loop back to
Yeah.
Council.
I actually just had a question for Lisa, if I could. So first I've heard of this, Lisa, so thank you for that information. So you're saying that state parks or the passes that we've heard the description, passes to the state park. We're talking about folks who need a place to stay. So you're saying that those receiving the state passes that have been presented to the council as a solution would in fact not be allowed to stay at the state park, or they'd have to stay for 2 weeks and then would not be guaranteed leave for a day, but not be guaranteed another 2-week stay. I think I heard you correctly. I just want to make sure.
Thank you for that question. So the phrase that I heard in Manager Starella Castro's presentation was season pass. And so it's possible another type of pass may have been offered by the state, but I was addressing specifically season passes, and I'm not aware of some other option that's been brought forward. But a season pass is only sold for day use camping, or not camping, but day use, where you would go in and hike or use the beach or picnic, not to camp. Unless the state has come up with something else, and to that I'm not aware, but I wanted to just add that clarification.
Okay, thank you again.
So it's Erica Rail.
So just a couple comments. One is for the idea that folks won't camp or aren't camping, folks are already camping in Barre. That they're all over the place. You just almost don't see them. So the idea that if we set up a place by the odd or set up a place where folks can go, folks are going to camp in Barre. It's already happening. And we need to set up a way for folks that can safely camp in Barre. And I always hear, well, it's not an option, or that, it's not going to happen. It's happening. It's going to happen. And folks are going to bed down where they can sleep safely. And we as folks and as leaders in Barre need to set up a way for folks to safely camp in Barre, where they can go and go to work or go get the things they need, and their campsite won't be disturbed. The other thing is that I heard that, there needs to be a transition plan for folks to get what they need. It's hard to make a transition plan to get folks into housing when there's not housing available. Working with folks that are trying to get back on their feet, it's very hard when they need to go 5 different places in one day. If there's a way to set up a way for folks to get what they need in one spot, that might be a little easier, because folks are out there without identification, without getting the forms they need, and all those things, identification, phones, just filing for things cost money. And that's a lot of money that folks don't have. $20 to get a license might not be that much for you or I, but that's a lot for somebody that doesn't have anything. just trying to fill out an application for 3 Square is very difficult for somebody who's trying to figure out where they're going to sleep at night. So if we can get that, all those forms together and some of that money together for somebody who doesn't have anything and one-stop shopping, that might make a world of difference to get somebody back on their feet. Thank you.
Thank you. Ken Russell.
Yeah, thanks for inviting me. It's really good to hear this conversation. It's really great to how folks have been banding together regionally. Couple points. One is the state has been working to bring the emergency housing program down to the local level for several years. There was a brief interruption because of the COVID money. But, you know, part of what's happening right now is the state saying they're washing their hands of a lot of these issues. Getting staffing from the state, I wouldn't hold my breath on that either. You know, maybe if there's a state of emergency, the National Guard could come in. But when we were running the overflow shelter in Montpelier last winter, there may have been a medical corps available, but on a sort of patchwork basis. But I think that it will come to service providers. We often have staffing issues. Another way was able to staff up fairly well for this overflow shelter. But at the end of the day, a lot of people are going to be falling through the cracks. And so I just would caution you when you're reading through the to-do list that we're all trying to come up with ideas to address these issues. A lot of them do have pitfalls, like, you know, what Lisa points out about the campgrounds. Yeah, they're remote. You know, there's a lot of imperfection. There's a lot of systems that aren't really scaled up and ready to solve these issues. People will fall through the cracks. There's going to be a lot of ongoing suffering and ongoing social turmoil that we all have to band together and try to have healthy communities around. So, and just one thing we have it another way on the wall is a memorial wall of the people who have died out on the streets. And I used to like to say, you know, it's going to take somebody to die until we get serious about this stuff. Well, the fact of the matter is people are dying all the time, and that's going to increase. And so it's tough stuff. Hopefully all this banding together will create some good solutions. And, you know, but we want our strong, healthy communities, and part of that takes grit and determination and smart planning and money. Thanks for letting me be here. Over.
Thank you, Ken. I'll call on Capstone Community Action, then Councilor Wozniak.
Hi, thank you for letting me speak tonight. I'm Allison Calderera with Capstone Community Action. Just to put this problem in perspective, I think it's useful to look at what Capstone, some of our data. We look back since October through March. We served 196 households providing housing counseling. And those are all the tasks that Erica was speaking so articulately about: helping people get licenses, working with landlords, tenant education, debit, repair of your credit. And with all of that work that we were putting into it, we were able to house 39 households. Out of those 139 households, we were able to house 39 households. So as you can probably imagine, we're taking this mass exit from the motels very seriously. Right now, we have one staff person who's working exclusively in the motels, trying to get people to have plans to exit the motels. This can involve anywhere from maybe possibly a plane ticket if they have family in other states. Camping will be a part of what some of our folks are planning to do, but there are lots of other people right now that are paralyzed with inaction because they literally don't know what to do. So I think that we're going to be getting down to the kind of the last hour here before the exit, before a lot of folks are going to be able to decide what they're going to do. So, I agree with Ken and Erica. We do need long-term solutions. The hopeful note that I'm going to just bring back here for someone that's been doing this work for a long time, the state money is unusual
and we should take full advantage of it. And I think that working together, this cross-sector group we have the best chance of making best use of this money. $12.5 million is not a small amount of money. We have the opportunity to apply for the HOP funds to be able to get things both for short term, but I would urge everyone that we don't need short-term solutions here. What we need are long-term solutions. And that may be involve more shelter, that may be smaller projects, substance abuse recovery homes, step down for people who have mental illness. This is a complex problem that's going to require some long-term thinking on all of our parts. But I've greatly appreciated how the city has stepped forward. And I really hope that we can, working together, that we can mitigate some of the issues that are going to come up, that may happen here on the streets. So Capstone is here and we're willing to help. And I appreciate you allowing me the time to be able to talk to the council.
Thank you, Allison, and thank you for all Capstone does. Councilor Wozniak and then State Representative Williams.
Sure. So a couple of things. I think that for Central Vermont, I think that the coalition that's been assembled is the perfect group to start developing some of these long-term solutions. But the fact is, we're not going to have that by July 1st. And July 1st is when we're going to have to deal with 208 households. So, you know, I think what I will say is the most urgent priority from my view right now is to develop a comprehensive policy for our first responders. So not just the PD, but the EMS, the fire department. So that, you know, I think there's been talk in other municipalities of an ordinance around camping policy or anything like that. And I don't think an ordinance is the right fit here because this is an extremely fluid situation and the municipalities need to be able to react very quickly and deploy the resources that need to be deployed. So I don't think an ordinance is the right fit, but a comprehensive policy that addresses property so that if you are found camping in Barre City, you know, our city employees are not going to tear down your tent and throw your stuff in a dumpster. I don't want that to happen. How are the municipalities, and I'm thinking about, you know, it would be great to, high in the sky would be to have a uniform policy between us, Berlin, and Montpelier, so that we don't send the message, you know, Montpelier is going to destroy your stuff if you camp, so let's all move to Barre. Yep. You know, we've continued to move on this regional approach, and I think that's the absolute right thing. So obviously we can't tell those other municipalities what to do, but in a perfect world, I think we would have a uniform policy for our first responders on how to address, like I said, the property rights, the camping, and then how are we going to, how is the exiting from the hotels on the 1st and the 31st? Because, you know, I said it last week and I'll say it again. I do not want to ever see Barre City Police Department or any police department, any municipality, anyone of authority dragging people out of hotel rooms. That's not a role that I want us to be playing. And I think that, you know, if the state's going to exit people, then the state can send people to exit people as far as I'm concerned. I do not want the municipality addressing any of that. So I want to move forward in a completely supportive way of the long-term policies, building more housing in Barre, figuring out what we can do for emergency shelters, figuring out how we can support the social services that are here, that are on this call, that are on the ground doing the job. But in the meantime, we need to figure out what we are going to do policy-wise by July 1st. And so those are some of the things that I just threw out would be, you know, frankly, lines in the sand for me. Like I will not support anything that will cause us to destroy people's property, et cetera, et cetera. So that's where I'm at right now.
Yeah, and I would just add, Councilor Wozniak, that you know, the chief and I will be discussing this in more detail, but you know, my sense is that this is the state's program. This is the state's responsibility to vacate people from those hotels and motels. You know, I can imagine our police department becoming involved if there's maybe property damage or some sort of violence happening. But I agree with you that the general act of vacating the rooms is not the responsibility of our police department. And then in terms of, you know, yeah, we know people camp in Barre. Like that's not a surprise. You know, I think the general response is when our when we're confronted with it, is we humanely connect those people to services. That's the policy of the police department. You know, there's people who are camping who do not come into contact with others, and then others that do. And when our police department has to act for some reason or another, that's their policy. They humanely connect them to services, right? So we're, and that's what we would, if we need to make that a formal policy, I think I'm happy to work with the chief on that, but that's what, as we've talked about this in department head meetings, this is our approach. But I concur with you on the vacating the premises piece.
State Representative Williams. And State Representative Anthony.
Sorry, Peter. Thank you, counselors, for allowing us to participate in this discussion. Earlier today, I sent along a brief, which you all should have received paper copies of, but I just wanted to go off of what we heard from Capstone. That 12.5 million in HOP funding is part of a much broader deployment of funds. In reality, there's $17 million in additional Housing Opportunity Program assistance monies. There's
Sorry, on top of the 12?
no, the 12 is part of that, but there's 26.4 million in general assistance emergency housing to help people find and pay for housing when they do not have it. There is 16.4 million in emergency shelter expansions in total. And I believe, Nicholas, you have a larger spreadsheet that contains all of these figures. There is more than 112 million new dollars in the FY24 state budget that are being appropriated to support unhoused persons. In addition to that, thinking more strategically, there is $112 million, $100 million in affordable housing. So that's going to take some time to spin up. That's going to take some time to deploy. But I think it's important to contextualize those HOP funds, and I'm very encouraged by the fact, as a grant writer in my day job for the food bank, where we, along with our partners like Capstone, try to ensure that these peoples in these hotels and motels have food to eat. I'm encouraged by how quickly these funds are being deployed, that grant agreements are being expedited and waived. That has been a big hangup for me personally, is the slow deployment of funds by the state. And I would just encourage you all, I echo the city councilors' concerns around staffing. I think that is the #1 priority that we need to ask of the state and the administration is human power. To assist in, if we are going to set up as a municipality, a temporary shelter at the BOR, that it needs to be well-staffed and well-secured. Thank you.
Yeah, Councilor Stockwell.
So we know that people camp across Barre, Montpelier, and Berlin. All three communities have established camping. And is it possible that we can use some of this money to provide pallets, showers, and toilets? If we disperse the populations and we know that there's camping in these 3 places already, can we not make those places more humane using those monies?
My understanding is that the funds are fairly unrestricted, which is unusual for the state of Vermont. Usually there's a lot of strings attached to all forms of state and federal assistance, but these monies are fairly loose in terms of what they can be used for.
Yeah, and I would just add to that, and some of our partners probably know a little bit better than me about this, but the pallets themselves, the challenge there is that they need a very specific landscape, flat land, they need connection to sewer water. So the places where those could be deployed is reduced, correct, yeah.
State Representative Anthony.
Thank you, and thank you folks for putting this on the agenda. I know it's going to be on and has been on. I would just urge some of the figures that Representative Williams just articulated are embedded in the budget yet to be signed off on. And so the important thing at the moment is to be sure we have a new fiscal year budget. And the Senate and House, the General Assembly, have done what they do, which is craft a budget. Undoubtedly, there's differences of opinion about it, but the fact of the matter is, if we don't have it July 1, the expediting money on the ground is not going to happen. And as Representative Williams said, everybody's scurrying now in the hopes that in 3 weeks or 4 weeks, something will happen. Well, if you don't have an approved budget, you can't even plan on that. It's as simple as that.
Well, one thing, oh yeah, Councilor Lozon.
No, go ahead.
I was just thinking, so we have till potentially an option until September 1st to triage and to be able to offer a roof over people's heads, bathroom facilities. It's imperfect, but at least that potentially buys the city some time to do some policy coordination if the state is headed to informal settlements, encampments. I think back, the last time in the nation's history that this happened was in the 1930s with Hoovervilles, right? Informal shanty towns where the economic system just wasn't working for people. And even if we, try to figure out a site where that could happen in the city, I think we need some time with that. And perhaps in the interim, the state could find some solutions. I think, the top 4 wealthiest people in this country own more wealth than the bottom 50%. And here we are in the wealthiest nation on earth, facing, having this foisted upon us constrained local governments, and not only all local governments equally. Stowe's not going to feel these impacts, but regional centers like Barre and St. Johnsbury and Springfield and Newport and Burlington and Winooski and St. Albans City and Rutland City, we're all going to feel these impacts, and we're going to have to pay these costs. And so it seems like this state funding is really the best option these regional centers have to try to mitigate these impacts and try to find a solution as best we can. But we can't, I think the state needs to recognize we can't sustain this over the long run. And if that housing money doesn't start producing units rapidly, and maybe we stop paying people to move to Vermont, then there'll be some unit. Then we can get to a solution. So, Councilor Sean Bell.
Piggybacking
Tom.
off that, it seems to me that unless we have some really strong guarantees, that we could get caught short. And we could be put in a position where the state doesn't come through. They may help until September 1st, but they may leave us hanging. And
Yeah.
I mean, that's a big fear I have. Plus the idea that there is money for possible housing, real housing, that could be a real benefit to people because they could see their lives a little bit differently. It would take so long. I mean, things just don't seem to work efficiently. And that is such a forgotten group of people. I don't know how you ensure that if we stick our necks out, that they're going to support us the way we need to be supported. That's my worry.
Councilor Lozon, you had your hand raised?
I'd want to listen for a few more minutes and then I'll go.
Councilor Stockwell?
If the budget gets passed and the monies are available, could a municipality say that they need site development and they could use prefabricated houses to move people who are currently in apartments out of apartments so that other people could move in? Is that potentially something the state would say? Yeah, you're moving some people into permanent housing and you're creating some vacancies.
I don't know the answer to that off the top of my head, Counselor, but I would imagine that they're amongst the myriad different support services that we have through DCF, AHS, and others, that's a possibility, yes.
Thank you.
Yeah, no, good. So Thank you both for being here. First of all, I'm not as concerned about the budget because I think, any reasonable person would consider these emergency funds. On July 1st, even if we don't have a budget, we don't send the state police home. We don't stop feeding people at the state level. What concerns me a little bit is I haven't heard any sort of commitment on any level from the state that we will do this or we will do that. We hear a lot of talk about money. Well, I know there's a lot of money in the budget, but until it is deployed at the local level, doesn't really mean a lot to me. I sit here and do the math on the 12.5, and, Washington County is 10% roughly population-wise of the state of Vermont. And I think, okay, so that's, 1,250,000 of that 12.5 that we could see. I agree with what several folks have said. Building more housing is a very long-term solution. The projects that, and we don't have the federal and state red tape to go through as a private developer, but the projects that we're planning now that are not yet permitted, and we're planning the permitting, we're looking at 2025 occupancy. And that is our best case scenario. And we're not building 200 units of housing. We're building smaller projects where we can deploy, smaller contractors. But, so the big concern is just coming up with an immediate solution. The best one that I have heard so far is the BOR that the city manager mentioned. Obviously, we need some commitment from the state in terms of staffing. And I say that is the best one because at least it buys us some time. The 31st is 1 week and 1 day from today. And that is when 108 people will be exited from the motel program. That's not really a lot of time. And so I think the best of all the solutions that I've seen, and I do appreciate the camping, but I'm not, I Googled portable restrooms to see, well, okay, if we wanted to buy one, how quickly could we even get one here? Yeah. Certainly not by next Wednesday. So there are just so many challenges. That is a facility that is available now with electricity and warmth and running water and showers. But obviously, if the city of Barre is going to step up and do our part, we need to have our partners step up and do theirs as well.
I agree with you completely, Counselor, and some of those monies can be used to, I believe, equip and run the BOR as a shelter. There are other avenues that I am pursuing. If no disaster declaration is made by the administration or the governor and no commitments to staffing are forthcoming, I have raised with leadership the possibility of us during any potential June veto session of legislating the deployment of human power and staff and resources to run these facilities, and or opening up of state lands, not campgrounds, but state facilities that do have heating and showers and running water. Mm-hmm. I don't know how likely that is in truth.
Is it a manpower issue, you think? Because we have heard even our partners have been great. The folks who are, on the Zoom meeting now, the folks who are here in this room have been great to work with, but even they express concern that they simply don't have the resources in terms of human power. They don't have, even if we could find funding, they don't have the bandwidth to provide staffing and that type of support.
Sure, I think the city manager can speak more to this, but I know every single serving on House Commerce and Community Development, I was made acutely aware that every state agency and department is suffering from the same employment woes that we are all suffering from, including the city of Barre. But something must be done, and I choose to believe that the state is able to figure out solutions in terms of deployment of staff and additional resources to assist us managing these shelters.
Yeah, and I would just add, Mayor, if I could, that just for context, that Good Samaritan has said they would not be able to staff this, the BOR. Right. That's how stretched they are, that even if we open the doors to it, they don't have the staff to support it.
So I think that comes, the key question is this, is this a state emergency crisis? Is it going to be treated like that? Are we going to have a National Guard assistance or not? It sounds like. And That's what I'm wondering, but I'm also, to the Council Wozniak's point, you know, we operate within frameworks of laws, our ordinances, state laws. Development is highly regulated at many levels of government. So we have to enter, you know, if we're going to be talking about informal settlements, even just a field with camping, we're still probably going to have to provision some bathrooms, electric, and all of that is regulated and needs permits. So we're going to have to find, are we entering into an extra legal? Are we going to say we're not going to follow our laws, or we're going to break some laws to make this happen? I don't, you know, and that's, I think, another thing we could use some potential guidance from and think about as a council in terms of emergency policies. So, Councilor Wozniak, then Councilor Lozon.
Thank you. So just,
Sorry, and then Sue Higby.
so I think you answered this question, Nicholas, but if the letter, the RFP, whatever, if we get approved for the HOP money for the staffing, et cetera, does that fulfill your bullet points? Like,
Yeah,
is that one
yeah,
you're
I mean,
saying whether they directly provided or whether they give us money too?
We would have to, we would have to have a contract with the state, I think, to make sure that our conditions are met and that we have some protection. But absolutely, if the HOP could staff it, secure it, and then if we had the assurances about the termination on September 1, that really addresses, I mean, we have other, and we've worked with the department heads, we have a list of things planning wise that we would need the state to help us with, but those are the big three, right? It's who's going to staff it, who's going to secure it, and how are we going to, what's the end game, right? What's the way out? And with details in between, but we can get there. So for example, you know, part of the staffing, right, that we have great staff who have gone through a lot of emergencies and think through this, is who's going to put the toilet paper in the bathrooms, right? Who's going to be cleaning it? Who's going to be feeding the people who are there, right? These are all details that we just don't have the human power to do, and would need a really firm state commitment to do it. Because worse than, well, I don't know what would be worse, but also would be very bad if we open the BOR and it's not staffed and it's not secured, and so
The Superdome after Katrina.
yeah, exactly. So we need, like, we would probably, in addition to the funding, would have to have a really airtight contract with the state to make sure that the city is protected.
So I think then the other thing, going back to your point, Representative, about your comments to leadership, and tell it to the Senate, not to Jill. But I think that, you know, the state knows where these, like, there is a lot of money in the budget. It's on the governor's desk now. It's yet to be seen what he's gonna do. But like, the state knows where these hotels are located, how many people are in these hotels, give or take a couple folks. So, you know, in further budget adjustments, getting more money directly, just purely to be selfish here, Barre hosts, what, 3 hotels within the city limits, I think, 4 if you count the Hilltops, something like that.
Yeah.
You know, giving funding directly to those, streamlining funding directly to the municipalities where the hotels are physically located, because we are just going to bear a more immediate cost than some of the, and you know, not all the people in hotels in Barre are from Barre, we know that. So it's not like every single one of them is going to remain in Barre City moving forward, but we are going to absorb a more immediate impact than, say, a Roxbury or a Middlesex, just because of where our services are located. And then the other thing is, I don't know the answer to this, but should we meet again next Tuesday to get a final update from the city about where things stand? Before the exiting would be next Wednesday or Thursday. So if we meet on Tuesday to get a final update about if we're ready for it.
We probably could if, I think we probably could, yeah.
Any objections to meeting next Tuesday?
No.
Like, can we do it earlier, 6 p.m. or?
5, 6, whatever. If folks want to get out of here, 5 would be fine. I mean, it would really be more
Quick
a
update,
briefing.
maybe remote only, just to do, okay.
Yeah, but we can be here if we want to. And I would
It has
like,
worked better when we've done quick meetings to do all remote.
Okay.
We're all here, so.
okay, could we ask police chief, fire chief, director of EMS to be present as well? Just in
Absolutely.
case we have questions of them. So thank you for that, Teddy, because I was going to suggest that we do that. But you'll not thank me for this one. I would not be a fan, and I would not support any sort of ordinance change or legislation. You know, our emergency personnel and officers have discretion now. And yes, in fact, they do issue warnings, and they don't, where there is a violation, sometimes they do use discretion, and they look at the totality of the circumstances before they decide whether or not to charge someone with a crime or remove them. And I don't want to have, so the ordinances are there now. I trust manager and our officers to use them with compassion and with discretion. But I wouldn't want to legislate that they would be prohibited from removing someone in a situation where clearly they should be removed. Because we have not only, we all feel the obligation to take care of our neighbors, but, you know, we want to keep people safe too. And so I would not support on any level any sort of ordinance that restricts their ability to do just that if they feel in their discretion that someone needs to be removed and their belongings need to be removed.
Yeah, just to clarify, I might have misspoke. I also don't want an ordinance. I don't think an ordinance is the right.
I mean, I think everyone understands how we feel. This is this is a frustrating situation that, probably, I mean, the frustration I'm fearing is simply the unknown. If you could tell me specifically, we have 100 people that we need to house, that we need to take care of, that we need to feed, well, then we could start making plans. But it's hard to plan when you don't know what you have for resources, you don't know where you're going to put people, you don't know how many guests you're going to have, and that's my frustration. I think once this situation stabilizes, I don't know that any of us will feel better. I think we'll feel better prepared once the situation stabilizes, because as one of our partners, I believe it was Capstone, mentioned, this situation will, in some respects, self-correct. There are some folks who have a plan now. They may have a friend, they may have a family member that they can stay with. Not everyone, we all know that. We just don't know the scope of the issue.
Yeah, although we do know that the housing pinch continues to be very severe, and people are getting evicted and losing their housing. And so, you know, I'm not sure if, you know, we can count on even that stabilization, but
I agree.
we can hope for it.
You're absolutely right. I look at the prices of multifamily dwellings. You know, it's one of the curses of being an old guy, right? Representative, we can look back 25 years and we look at a house and say, I remember when that quad sold for $100,000 and now it's selling for $6 million. And what that translates into the folks who are buying them, they have to charge higher rent. It's honestly, it's horrifying, because I look at the rents going up and up and up to the point where it's difficult for anyone to afford that level of rent. So I agree with you, Mayor. I don't know where the ending is, but it's not good. It's just not.
Sue Higby.
So we're in a triage situation, obviously, and my instinct is that quite a few of us are here to talk about the innovation fund.
I can't hear her.
Okay. We're in a triage situation.
Oh, you might need to be at the microphone, Sue. I'm sorry. Yeah.
Okay, here I am. We're in a triage situation. A lot of us here in the room are here to discuss our proposals for the community innovation funding opportunity. It seems to me that it might make sense to postpone decisions until we have a clear idea of how much funding the state is going to be providing. I feel awkward at this stage. I think we can all discuss our ideas, but I don't know if it would be prudent to go ahead and actually make a decision about the funding if there is such a huge need right now and we have no clue what the state of Vermont is going to be providing.
Thank you very much for that, Ms. Higby. I do really appreciate it. And Mayor, I will make that motion to table the ARPA Community Innovation Fund presentation authorization funding for selected projects.
I'll second that.
There's a motion to table with a second. I'm checking, is that a debatable motion?
No.
No. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All Those opposed say no.
No.
And it had, I believe it has to pass by 2/3. I'd have to confirm that, but.
Correct.
Okay, I'm gonna call division because I didn't get it. Counselor Booton,
Aye.
Counselor Deering,
Aye.
Counselor Shumbell,
Aye.
Counselor Lozon,
Aye.
Counselor Stockwell,
Aye.
Counselor Wazazak,
Nay.
and I'm a no. The motion passes with 2/3, right?
No, I think
We have
is
four.
5 out of 7, that is not 2/3. That is 0.5716.
Oh, you
Definitely
need all six- you need
0.51716.
6 votes to have it 2/3? Okay, then it did not carry, so.
Point of discussion, then the only reason I voted no is because we have all the people here and they've
Yeah.
sat through an hour and a half of a meeting, so it feels sort of disrespectful not to have. Right. Right, but
Yeah.
if we
Yeah.
tabled the discussion, then.
Then it's
couldn't have the
done,
discussion.
so.
And we can't debate that, but I agree wholeheartedly with what Ms. Higbee said. I mean, faced with so much uncertainty and I just,
Yeah.
I appreciate the work that everyone has done, but when you're talking about taking care of people, I can't in good conscience approve studies or art pieces as much as I like them and want to vote yes for them. I can't at this point in time.
Yeah, no, and I just to be clear, I don't support making decisions tonight. I just think that if people want to talk
Oh.
about their ideas tonight, that's what I want to respect their time because they've sat here so long.
Sure.
I think Representative Anthony.
I just want to close with two reassurances. One, the chair of the Human Services Committee on the House side has been meeting with the leadership of the Agency of Human Services on a weekly basis and trying to encourage, reassure the funding is appropriated. It just needs, if you will, to get out the door an authorization. And by the way, that person is there for accountability reasons because it's been often enough that money is authorized, but it just doesn't seem to get out the door in some instances and not others. So that's a problem. It's not a problem that legislators generally are able to solve because we don't actually oversee agencies. We fund them and we tell them what their mission is. The other feature that I think I should throw out there is there have been exploratory talks in respect to underutilized mobile home parks with pads to be rented, and that doesn't take 25 years. And so there are short-term fixes and there are longer-term fixes. And finally, I guess I would enter a plea for each of you to do what the state always historically has found difficulty doing, which is long-range planning. It's true, we now realize in workforce training, we now realize it's true in housing, it's true in making sure that the emergency infrastructure is staffed for the next generation and trained. All those, all of a sudden, are coming home to roost, but they've been around for a decade. So I'll take blame if it's deserved, but do not forget to urge your public officials to think long-term, even if the house you want to put up will take 8 years to be on the ground.
Right.
It's still, unless you start, it's that 8 years will never come to fruition. So thank you.
See, Ellen Kay has her hand raised, and then Counselor Deering.
Hi, Ellen K. Berry City. I'm not feeling well tonight. I'm going to leave my camera off. I just wanted to bring in just a different aspect and leave that here, which is that to remind all of us that we are talking about human beings in our community. And so I want us to think about how we will treat these folks when we see them in the coming months. How we will band together as a community to welcome them, to remind them that they are part of this community and not just a problem. I would love to see creative undertakings by our neighborhoods, in our parks, all sorts of ways to bring people into the fold who have been so disenfranchised. And the other thing I want to say here, and that's just, I'm just leaving that in for people to think about, for all of us to think about. And I don't want to see like downtown businesses being unfriendly, that kind of thing. So I just hope that we remember to think this way as well as we're trying to solve this enormous emergency. The other thing I just wanted to point out, though it may seem like a small thing, camping is when people voluntarily go out in nature and cook food over fires and swim and hunt and do all those things that they like to do. It's recreation. This is sheltering outdoors. And although it may seem semantic, I think it's really important to think of that and not use the term camping for what this is. This is despair. So I just want to leave that here and remind us that how we talk about this, how we think about it, will really inform what we do about it. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Deering?
So I think it's important to have compassion and empathy for everyone. I mean, being homeless personally before, it's never fun to not have a roof over your head. The problem that really bothers me the most, and one of the things that I see tonight in front of me, is that we have a document from you, Representative Williams, talking about 6 months ago, you guys had adjusted the budget to extend the lifespan of the motel program until July, and it appropriated more money. Then you called the administration to develop a strategy to wind down this program appropriately. How are we appropriately winding down the program, and what are we doing?
I think regarding your question, just some context. This was a pandemic era program that was created to house unhoused persons. It was indeed extended 6 months ago in January through the Budget Adjustment Act. At that time, the legislature called on the administration to develop a plan. None was forthcoming, unfortunately. And then the budget came, the FY24 budget, which FY24 starts on July 1st, as you all know. That came to us throughout the course of the legislative session. The House put in large sums of money, as I previously spoke to, the 112 million in unhoused person supports and another 112 million in affordable housing. Those monies were put in by the House. It went to the Senate. The Senate pulled a lot of that money out. It came back to the House and the Committee of Conference, and the Committee of Conference worked on and through a lot of pressure from our communities, and members of the House put those monies back in and then some. And so that is where we are. We continue to call on the administration to provide the staffing and supports that are needed. And I would urge everyone here, as I have shared in the document that you have in front of you, to effectively coordinate response and engagement with the Agency of Human Services, DCF, and others. And also, I would encourage you all to let your state officials know and let the administration know that this is a very pressing issue.
So back to my question about so you talk about this, the Senate and the House trying to come up with a plan, and you guys give it off to the governor's office. How do we drop the ball between the Senate and the House giving it to the governor, 6 months coming up with a plan? I just don't know how we're at and how we're going to get really some state buy-in with this, because I feel like this has been pushed on the municipalities. And we kind of talked about that. That was like the transition plan, but we haven't seen anything. We've been told anything. And I really tried to kind of bite my tongue through a lot of this because of that. But I'm very serious about this issue because it's important. We are in a crisis mode. We're not in a pandemic, but we're in a crisis mode. And for the state to appropriate money because we're in a pandemic crisis mode, and for them not to have a plan going forward, to me feels like it's irresponsible on the state's part. to pass it off.
And if I could, Joe, I do think Representative Williams answered that question. And there is a difference between the executive branch, which is in charge of implementing the will of the legislative body, and the legislative branch. And I think he explained that pretty clearly about what happened there. So.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor and Councilor. I agree with you. This is a crisis. I think we're on the same side here. And I think we need to do everything that we can to make sure that these persons have all the amenities that they need, be it food, shelter, or anything else. And I strongly believe that. I've dedicated my life towards serving persons in need. And I believe we together as a community can effectively create a response with the support of the state of Vermont.
So we were going to meet next Tuesday. I see one more hand raised, and then I think it's time to move on. But to get a quick update at 5 p.m., see where we are with the state and with our emergency responders, and then potentially be thinking about if any policies are potentially needed, and what the timelines for that might look like. Phil Morris, I see your hand raised. Thank you, Representative.
Hi, this is actually Beth Mueller, not Phil Morris. I'm wondering if you have, are you able to estimate what the potential capacity up at the BOR would be?
We would establish, so because it's not used as a sheltering location regularly, we would work with the state and the various state agencies that oversee emergency management to establish what that capacity would be. We would hope that it would be able to sustain a lot of the people in Washington County, but that would be determined after we walk through the facility with the state, assuming they take us up on that offer.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Right. So with that, I think we can pivot to the ARPA Community Innovation Fund presentations. I know that this is a heavy topic and we're working through it. But I do appreciate that State Representative Anthony reminded us that we have to be thinking about the long term, and these are long-term investments in community projects, and it's definitely been a long-term process getting to this point. And so I'd invite these presentations, and remind people if they will try to keep these as brief as possible. So, and Nicholas, did you have an order that you wanted these to go in?
I thought it, based on how the questions came in, it might be easier to work from the lowest grant amount up to the highest.
Okay, so the lowest grant amount is.
So I believe that was Rainbow Bridge. Yeah.
John Trader, welcome.
Hey, thank you. Wow, it's warm in here.
Yes, it is.
Whew. And I'll be super brief, and I'm going to abuse my time because I can say it in 2 sentences. The people are the human power, but they have no money. The governments have the money, but they have no human power. There is an opportunity for transformation there. And I'll continue. Good evening. Thank you all for having me. My name is Sean. I am the executive director of the Rainbow Bridge Community Center, Barre, Vermont's local nonprofit LGBTQ+ drop-in center and resource hub. And shall I get right to answering the questions? Yes. We all know the questions?
Yeah.
The core of the Rainbow Bridge community is 120 strong and growing every day. But I formally invite every resident of Central Vermont to join us in building a robust community where personal liberation is a real possibility. As for the justification of this project's home being at 81 North Main Street in Barre, Vermont, which is the home of the RBCC, I will say this. The RBCC provides a rich context to the library, supplementing the written word with art, music, community resources, and knowledge and wisdom, both experiential and institutional. The RBCC is not subject to political or populist pressure. There is no threat of a book ban at the RBCC. The library at the RBCC is not within a vacuum. It is one component of our drive to enhance the services we offer this community now and in the future, such as our writing group and research assistance for students of all ages. The RBCC library is focused on connecting Vermonters with material from afar and from our backyard. The center aims to be a repository of queer history with pride, much like all of us here feel about this city, and the idea that there is something special about this place and its people. We serve a fabulous community with unique safety and privacy needs. The RBCC is a space queer folks can enter with confidence, pick up a book that is relevant to their unique needs, and engage with a community in powerful ways. I thank you for your time, your consideration, and I welcome further questions.
Thank you for the presentation. Are there questions? All right, hearing and seeing none, thank you.
Thank you all.
Next up is
Barre Area Senior Center. I think, thought I saw Kathy on Zoom.
Yes.
Yeah,
Here she comes.
there she is.
Kathy.
Here I am. Thank you so much. Are you able to hear me okay?
Yes, thanks for your patience.
Oh, sure. I feel a little awkward going forward on this based on that lengthy, really heavy discussion on what everyone's facing, but I will go ahead and be extremely brief. In the first roundabout, I'm Kathy Hartshorn with the Barre Area Senior Center. I'm one of the co-executive directors. Our main goal is to reach more seniors than we are currently. We currently have roughly 343 members, 104 Barre City. Of that is our Barre City residents. And according to the last US Census, there are approximately 1,184 people over the age of 65 in Barre City. So we're not reaching enough folks. And so the project is, we are asking for funds under $5,000, $4,875, I believe, to purchase 2 OWL systems, 2 laptops, and a smart TV to be able to reach those people who are unable to access our center physically. And just a quick note that our first application was for, I can't remember, I don't have it in front of me, either 10 or 12,000. So I've cut it in half and taken some items out. And after the last council presentations, I realized that there are a lot of projects in Barre that need funding. And so I said, how can I scale mine down to the bare minimum? And your question to me was, how do I expect this equipment will change or expand your programming and reach otherwise isolated seniors looking for social connection? And the whole purpose of what we do is to serve the seniors in different areas: health and well-being, social, educational, cultural, arts, music, and travel. And these are important areas for our seniors in our communities, particularly the social aspect. Everyone needs to be in social contact for healthy aging. And I would welcome any questions at this point. Any further questions you might have?
Thanks for that great overview, and certainly we know there are a lot of isolated seniors that it sounds like this equipment could reach out to. Are there any other questions from council? All right, thank you so much, Kathy.
Thank you.
All right, next up, thanks for keeping me on track.
Old Labor Hall.
Old Labor Hall lift upgrade. Karen Lane, welcome.
Maybe we can cover both. I don't know if Karen can cover both the lift and the technology upgrades.
Sounds great.
Possibly.
Could you cover both items? Yeah, great.
I'd be happy to. And I will also try to be brief. Can you hear me okay? I tend not to speak loud enough, so I'd just like to first say I was delighted to be present for the honor that was awarded to a gentleman we used to call Crip Polly, who was a regular at the Aldrich Public Library. He was quite a reader, and he would come in often with his daughter Margaret Kakavo, and was a cherished part of our readership. So that's a great honor, and good to know that his roots went all the way back to northern Italy, to a little town called Baveno. So I'm going to refer to Barre's Italian heritage also. That's really the history of the building that I represent. The Barre Historical Society owns the Socialist Labor Party. Now, I'll just briefly say it was built in 1900, and we were able to, in 1995, purchase it with the help of the city of Barre and also the Vermont Housing and Conservation Board. And it's been a labor of love ever since. We're not through yet, but we've made a lot of progress. The two proposals that we have before you, and I really was going to treat them separately, it consists of support for the installation of a lift. We have had a lift in the building since 1999, 2000, but it only reached the exterior, the basement, and the main floor. We have been in the process of installing a new lift, which will give access to the top floor, where we're going to have a classroom with a small library and also an office space and storage. So the lift it has been installed, but it's not finished yet. We're completing the carpentry work, and there's a little bit more to do. So in order to give you our total budget, the total cost for the project was $67,217. Of that, we've raised $51,000. So we were hoping that we might apply to you for the remaining $15,000. We've received grants from foundations, banks, the labor unions, social service clubs, and a number of individuals, plus a grant from the Vermont Arts Council. So that's where our funding comes from. And we're pretty close, but we still need to finish doing some carpentry work to make the building fully accessible. Once people emerge from the lift, they'll be on a landing, and they need to be able to get through doorways that were too narrow when they were built over 100 years ago. So that's the main project. The second project is about the same size, except the total is only $19,936. And the proposal really is to upgrade our performance equipment. We, in the very beginning, when we reopened, we did have some equipment, which we've added to over the years in the past 22, mostly through donations and grants. And all the equipment we now own is not user-friendly. It's old, it's outdated, heavy, cumbersome, and it requires strength and know-how to set it up. So what we're looking at is an upgrade to the sound system, projection system, lighting, install a track so the curtain can be moved without climbing a 13-foot ladder, and some additional seating so we can accommodate not just 125 people, but from now on 200 people. So that's basically the outline of what we're proposing. And thank those of you who visit the Labor Hall and use it. And we're very proud on the 9th of May that the city was able to conduct the school budget revote in our building, and we're proud to have you there. So thanks for all your support. And if you have any questions, I'd be happy to try to answer them.
Thank you, Karen. One thing I was just curious about is how many more people or events do you think these improvements will help you attract to downtown Barre?
Well, it's a constant question that we get. What do you have for sound equipment?
Okay.
People often bring their own, pieces of equipment, laptops and projectors and that sort of thing. So the easier it is to use what we have, the more we're confident people, including our own programming, will be enhanced. We had a very busy year this year, despite the emergence from the pandemic. And we had over 3,000 people in and out of the building for various events over the course of, approximately over the course of the year, plus 800 people who voted on May the 9th. Thank you, Carol. So I would predict an increase in that, just because it will be a lot simpler to make use of the building. But like Sue and our other folks who've spoken, it is understandable that the funds that you have at your disposal may need to go for other projects. So we'll continue to do what we do, and look forward to continuing to work with you.
Thank you, Karen.
Thank you.
Up next is
Sage.
Circle?
No, we have, Circle, sorry, yes.
Circle Women's Shelter.
So I saw Carol online.
Yeah, hi, everybody.
Hi, Carol.
Thank you for your time and the opportunity to apply to these funds. I'm Carol Diamond. I'm with Circle, formerly Battered Women's Services and Shelter. And we are a small nonprofit that provides services and supports to victims and survivors of intimate partner violence throughout Washington County. One of our most critical services is our emergency shelter. So it's actually, interesting to be a part of the earlier conversation, as we are also very much aware of the motel stays and the emergency housing crisis. And Barre City back ancient times in the 90s actually helped us establish our emergency shelter that's still in operation. And so the majority of the funds that we're seeking through this grant program is in support of shelter-related projects that will strengthen our infrastructure by utilizing technology and data analysis, ensuring safety of future residents by completing necessary repairs, providing commercial-grade appliances for residents' use at the shelter, and allowing us to continue meeting COVID safety protocols so that residents and staff are safely housed for as long as they need to be. And as for the question, it was asked if we would be willing to get all the permits. And I would say absolutely, we would absolutely get all the permits that are required. The majority of the work that's to be done, like making repairs to outdoor privacy fencing, is on existing fencing. Like we're not putting anything new, so it is mostly repairs to existing items. And I'd be happy to answer any other questions that anybody has.
Thanks, Carol. Can you remind us, when would the timeline, if, let's say these awards were made at the next council meeting, what would be the implementation timeline?
The majority of our work can be done fairly quickly. I anticipate being able to complete everything by December. The only issues I foresee, I know we have a commercial washing machine in our shelter that we were able to purchase, and that was on back order for like 9 months. We're having issues finding contractors. Everybody's booked up, our usual contractors. And so we're hoping to be able to find someone that does have openings to help us with some of those smaller repairs. But otherwise, time-wise, we should be able to complete by December.
Thank you. Any other questions for Carol and Circle? All right, hearing and seeing none. Thank you, Carol.
Thank you so much.
That takes us to Sage Mountain outdoor classroom upgrades.
That's Emily Ruff.
Emily, are you on the call? All right, it looks like then we'll skip up to the art project. Sue Higby. Or the walkthrough upgrade.
I beg your pardon?
What the walkthrough upgrade, maybe.
Walkthrough, yeah. So I'm Sue Higby. I'm the director of Studio Place Arts. Studio Place Arts, for those who are new to the area, is a 501c3 nonprofit organization. We basically came to life to save the Nichols Block after a pretty devastating fire years ago. And we've taken the tools of art making into the community for a variety of purposes. And when I heard about the innovation project, I was pretty excited because in the past, I've been involved in creating a temporary sculpture park where there was a huge vacant lot. In fact, Councilor Lozon will probably remember that I came before the council and said, please Google vacant lots because you're going to find out you don't want one in downtown Barre. And basically crime, of course, is something that festers in an area where there isn't construction. So we very quickly created a temporary sculpture park on the vacant lot, which is now used for Barre City Place, I might add. We've created a downtown pocket park, the Granite Zipper Pocket Park, out of a very narrow swath. And there are a number of other projects that sort of piqued my curiosity as I was walking around downtown Barre. I thought, is there a spot that needs a little art? And the walkthrough from the parking and residential area to Main Street that is supposed to be under the management of Barre City. I haven't done the complete research that needs to be done and will be done about the properties adjacent to this walkthrough, as well as whether we have an easement arrangement or full ownership of that space. I will be doing more research on that and And if there are any limitations, of course, I'll report back and describe those limitations. But the walkthrough isn't just about creating an art installation that creates new vitality to an area that feels pretty dreary. It's also about public safety. And I'll be very candid. I think that public safety is one of these issues that's highly personal. If you've had an experience that makes you feel nervous about walking in a dark alleyway, or if you don't like crossing through vast parking lots to cut across a certain area, you may avoid that neck of the woods or Barre City altogether. I rarely see groups of people walk through the walkthrough. I think it's an underused space. I think it could certainly become very alive with an art installation. And incidentally, the art installation would involve both Barre gray granite and also metal, either fabricated new or reuse of old tools, industrial tools. The shape and formation of a walkthrough being linear is really attractive for an installation that involves movement. And that is the theme of getting people from one side of Barre into the heart of downtown, the shopping district. So I did share a draft call to artists that showed how the concept of movement could be incorporated into different types of art installations. The request also includes new lighting. The lighting is absolutely abysmal in that space, and some other, fresh paint and things of that nature. So it's a very interesting opportunity, one that I would enjoy working on. Another project that I managed was the Stone Sculpture Legacy Program and also the Bike Rack Program. I just want to pass out for anyone who didn't get the call that I shared.
Well, I think we all got
Everyone
it
get
by
it?
email.
Okay.
Yeah,
And
that
then
should be
the
on
other
people's
handouts
desks.
that I will share, there was a question about what is the art stroll? So the art stroll is a collection.
Yeah, I've got one of those.
Okay, great. Do you want to pass it over? A collection of public sculptures that can be sort of like an Easter egg hunt, or a search for different things, and a learning opportunity to understand what the granite carving history in Barre really is, who did different work.
You're going to want to go sit down again.
Who did the work, and when it was done, and who supported that work. The art stroll is supported in a variety of different ways, both in advertising. I brought some examples of advertising that Studio Place Arts routinely does. We advertise our programs and also the public sculpture in places like 7 Days. We advertise in Art New England magazine. We advertise in Art Scope magazine. And we advertise the art stroll in the map that has both Barre and Montpelier shown. I passed through a little collection of photographs that show you some of the prominent activities that Studio Place Arts has been involved in through the years, and to show you also what our organizational philosophy is. The first page talks about art being everywhere. It is everywhere, and the opportunities to create art are also everywhere, and in funny little places like the walkthrough. Art creates energy. If you flip to page 2, you're going to see three different projects that SPA managed. The top picture, is the temporary sculpture park that now is Barre City Place. That large building looks like a tenement, but it's actually the side of the Nichols block, our building. The front is the coffee break sculpture, and then of course the granite zipper pocket park is pictured. Also, art projects celebrate community. 2 of the major commissions that I was responsible for looked very specifically at the history of Barre. For instance, on the Art Celebrates Community page, Heather Ritchie created a sculpture called Coffee Break, which celebrates blue-collar workers here in Barre. These photos show the installation. They also show the way that we do outreach on a continuous basis. When we, on the bottom, we had a group of people from the VCFA program, and we took them on tours, and we told them a little bit about our history. That's a regular activity with the art stroll. Art builds community pride without question. Sean Williams' piece is focused on, here it's called Culmination. This is a sculpture that was commissioned through the Semper Bond Fund. And this sculpture talks about our very diverse ethnic background that came together. You'll see on the bottom of the page that we present different types of community opportunities to interact with the artists who are designing these sculptures, and that clearly from the energy that you see from the pages, that it really perks up the downtown Barre. One final thing is that I talked about public safety. I think that it's clear that people have just a feeling when they look at an alley, the darkness, but they also, they're walking in Barre City. And there was an article in the Burlington Free Press 3 days ago talking about the push for walkable communities, of course, and we all know that. But I was actually startled that pedestrian deaths in the US are at their highest in 4 decades. And when you look, if you would consider what the aerial view is of the rear parking area, there are 2 spots that are very distinct. The spot right behind City Hall is managed primarily for just lobbing in lots of vehicles. The spot that's closer to Espresso Bueno does have an appropriate sidewalk at the right place so that people can duck in and out of buildings. And so the one thing, in addition to advocating for support for this project to create an attractive and safe walkthrough here in downtown Barre, it's also to rethink the way this parking lot is mapped. I think we could do a lot better. I think people need to get to Barre City. They need to feel comfortable walking through those parking lots, and they need to feel safe going from parking lot to downtown.
Thank you so much
So,
for that.
yep. And do you have
great
any?
overview, Sue, and
Pardon?
thank you for that great overview and all you've done to enhance. I recently sat down for coffee with a self-described old timer in town, and he asked me, "Is this a granite town or not?" This is a town that memorializes and honors granite, and certainly the past 3 years may be an event in this in city's history and the nation's history worth memorializing. So thank you for that compelling proposal. Any questions?
Any questions? Okay. All right.
All right. Thank you much, Sue.
Yes.
That takes us to the, I think the Spalding High.
Spalding High School
Spalding High
Foundation.
School Foundation.
May I make a quick comment before we give our presentation?
Sure, yeah.
Good evening, everybody.
Superintendent Hennessy.
Yeah, Chris Hennessy, Superintendent of the Barre Unified Union School District. Before we give our brief presentation from the Spalding Foundation, on behalf of the school district, I want to offer my sincere thanks for the rich, robust, thoughtful, and very compassionate discussion that we experienced this evening on the housing crisis that we're facing in this region. This is a crisis that is having direct and pretty serious impact on our schools on a daily basis, and we are deeply worried and concerned for our children, our students, and families who are really experiencing this this crisis that is just unprecedented. So I want to thank the council for this discussion. It was fascinating to listen to, and I would welcome an opportunity for representatives from the district to be part of the discussion going forward. We think we have a lot to offer in terms of experience, in terms of resources. Of course, we're all looking for the same resources, people in particular, that everybody else is. But I just want to say we would welcome being at the table for that. So thank you very much for this evening. So, Eddie.
Thank you, Chris.
Thank you. Eddie Roos.
Thank you for having us. Gee, Sue, that was terrific. And I just want to say that as a member of the Barre Rotary, we're very promoting of the artistic arts here in Barre with the mural on Summer Street, as well as the Barre Art Splash that's currently on display downtown. So kudos to you for everything you do, and we hope that goes through. Yes, I'm representing the Spalding High School Foundation, which is a 501c3 organization that is poised to raise funds for projects that are outside the scope of the normal school budget. Our Biggest success thus far was the installation of the field lights in 2015 on A.G. Pendel Field, which was part of a master plan to include renovation of the athletic fields, which hasn't been done since 1963 when the school was built. Basically, we have with us today the board, which consists of the superintendent of the schools, the principal of the school, Luke Athier, as well as BUUSD school board members, Giuliano Ceccinelli, and the Spalding High School Athletic, the BUUSD Athletic Facilities Director, Jamie Evans. And so basically, we just wanted to address some of the questions and concerns that the council had regarding our request. And with that, the first question that was posed to us was in regard to it was unclear what kind of improvements will this fund, and what is the scope of the changes and improvements to be funded? Here, I'll let you sit, Luke. I'll come over here in case there's more that needs to be done.
Thank you. Luke Ather, principal of Spalding High School. So I'm actually going to address the first and the second question. The second being how the school and the broader public be able to provide input into the design. So again, just to reiterate just a touch of what Eddie shared with you is in April 2012, we commissioned a capital improvement assessment of our athletic fields to overhaul and update the original fields from 1963. The overall project was cost prohibitive to do that entire project in one fell swoop. But with the work of the Spalding High School Foundation, local community members, we were able to complete an initial phase of installing those lights. The request before you will be used to assess and update the original 2012 plans to current codes, costs, technologies. The updated plan will provide Spalding High School administration with accurate cost estimates and allow us to present informed options to the student body and community members who can then provide input on which phase to move forward with next.
And the other question that the council had was in regards to the question of whether Barre Town has been approached for ARPA funding and how much are they willing to contribute. Jamie Evans will answer questions 3, 5, and 6.
If it's okay, can I hand out some handouts?
Yeah, I think that would be helpful just to give a scope of the overall project in relation to our request for the feasibility study.
So I'm Jamie Evans, Facilities Director for the Barre School District. Born and raised in Barre as well, say that. So yeah, the list of questions you gave us, so the third question being, let me just repeat it, has Barre Town been approached for ARPA funding and how much are they willing to contribute? So yes, they have been approached. Barre Town has been approached for ARPA funding. Contact has been made with the town manager. We are tentatively scheduled for the June 13th agenda. We will share the same request for funding assistance for our project. And there'll be more to follow in the future. If I could jump around, we're all taking turns here answering the questions. The fifth question being, there's funding for stormwater. How will this be integrated into a 3-acre stormwater permit for the site? A little bit of a lengthy answer on this one. We've been fortunate to receive funding through a third-party contractor, Greenprint Partners, for the 3-acre stormwater mitigation for Spalding High School. This funding source has funded 100% of the feasibility and design phase of this project. Future funding from Greenprint Partners for the construction phase of the project has reported the potential to receive up to 90% funding at this time. A portion of the stormwater mitigation project is within the area of the future upgrade of the ball field complex. The engineering firm that's been preparing the feasibility and design phase of the project is completely aware of the ball field upgrade and has taken this information into consideration when designing the stormwater mitigation project. Question number 6, the riparian buffer has been removed on this site in a manner that appears to be in violation of the city's Unified Development Regulations, section 3020, which are designed to protect water quality, stream habitat, mitigate flood damage, and protect from major erosion. Will this site design obtain all required city permits and fund restoration of the riparian buffer? The SHS maintenance staff has taken on the project to clean up and restore the riverbank area in this part of the ball field. We've been in contact with several folks with the Department of Environmental Conservation, met with them on site and had discussions regarding the work being done. We were advised that some minor ground disturbance work was outside of the channel and not jurisdictional to the stream alteration. The river management engineer with the Department of Environmental Conservation recommended we contact the Barre City Planning and Zoning Office to make sure we were complying with their bylaws. We did consult with them and responded by applying for a permit and paying the appropriate fees. We have the permit currently in hand and are in the 15-day appeal process period.
I'll just acknowledge that's a question that came from me, and I've gotten contacts from maybe 8 different people who've seen the first phase of riparian removal and now a second phase, and are very concerned that they may not be meeting the city's regulations.
So yeah, and in fairness, we may have been a little bit aggressive with our work on that area. For any folks that first saw it, it looked very drastic because it was such, so overgrown, and rotten trees, dead trees, whatnot. So it looked very drastic in the beginning. It made me a little concerned myself at first, like, wow, we're getting into something a little bigger than maybe we should have. But when we consulted with, some folks with the Department of Conservation, they applauded this at the same time for trying to clean up that riverbank and make it, nothing else, nicer looking, safer looking. We had a lot of dead trees that were literally falling down on our property. Certainly didn't want that to fall on anybody, any sports players. So anyhow,
thank you for getting the permit. Appreciate it. Yeah.
Thank you.
I got a question for you. So you said that you're going to approach Barre Town for ARPA funds, correct? And you're going to approach them for the same amount of funds that you're approaching us for? Now, in the event that they were to give you funds, would that back off of the funds that we would potentially approve for this project?
Well, our hope is that both Barre City and Barre Town would fund, evenly or somewhere close in the same range evenly. Certainly, the more funds we have, the more work we can do. Our hope is, like Mr. Ather alluded to, we need funding to help provide a project budget. What's it going to cost to do this said project? Once we know what that amount is, and then again hire an engineering firm to then construct construction documents ready to be prepared to put out to bid. We can't further this project any further without being able to do those 2 things. Once we have those 2 things in hand, certainly we need to work with our school board where we're going to find the funding to do this said project. But we need to.
The goal is to find out how much it would cost for the overall plan, the master plan, and then that gets presented to the school board for them to decide whether to move forward with that, at which point we will begin fundraising through the foundation, at which point that's when we will go to the OISA, Barre Town, and other constituents to help fund this city project. Or, well, not the city project, but a community project which will have great effects to the area. Yes.
Councilor Buzzelor.
Just a very similar question to Councilor Deering, but just to flip it a little bit. I always just assume Barre Town's gonna vote no. I'll go on the record with that. So assuming you get the $26,800 from us, and nothing from the town, just for sake of argument, like what would that 26,800, how far would that get us through what you're trying to do?
Well, we're hopeful that it will be enough to construct a budget for the project, as well as hire an engineering firm to draft up construction documents. That's the hope. That's the best we can tell you at this point. We don't know what they're going to charge.
Fair enough. Yeah.
Yeah, Jamie. It's important to recognize also that the foundation, when they receive donations, those can be allocated into 3 aspects of the foundation. One is academic enhancements, visual and digital arts, as well as athletics. And so when donations are made to the foundation, they are allocated accordingly. So the coffers that we have now, some of those are restricted and cannot be used for this project that we're talking about, but it is good to know. But thank you for your consideration. Let us know if you have any more questions.
The only other question I think was what coordination has been done with the school board?
Yeah, that was Juliana.
And I was just curious how your capital funding works, just because I don't know a great deal about school capital.
Would you like me to
funding.
go through the questions?
Yep.
Giuliano Ceccanelli, BUSD Chair. Has the BUSD School Board and Administration been approached about their capital improvement funds to implement the project? Only the Facility Committee has been part of this so far. As part of the Stormwater Mitigation Project, we will get a greater understanding of the plan in our June 5th meeting. This will then go to the board. What groundwork has been put down to ensure this isn't a plan that gets shelved when the final price tag is finalized? We have the athletic complex designs. The stormwater mitigation project will kind of kick this off, and community support. We have a lot of community support for this. I get questions about when are we going to start moving on this, so the community's behind us. The project will be in phases. Phase 1 is just to get the footprint, and that's key. Once we get that established, the fields will get laid out, softball, baseball, and that will add 2 additional regulation soccer fields to it. So basically, we can bring all our sports back into the complex. The campus will be utilized better than it has been. And then it would break out into a phase 2, maybe lights, and phase 3, turf, and a rubberized track. How would a bond vote and district capital spending move this project forward? Back up against, for what? Back up.
Stack up.
Stack up, sorry, against other needs at the district. A bond vote for this particular ask won't happen. It's just for the construction plans and a summary of the cost. The athletic complex is almost 60 years old. The last facility actually to be updated. It's probably something that your great-grandparents ran on. We're sensitive to the spending community tax dollars. Phase 1 will have the greatest gain in the community for the least amount of tax dollars. It's pretty much just leveling out everything and reorienting the fields.
And will you let us know when you hear back from Berrytown? Right
Yes.
away? Yeah, sure. I see Councilor Deering, and then were their hands up over here? No? Okay.
Just a question regarding the surplus funds and if you were able to use that for any of this.
That is not up to me. That's up to the whole board, and it would have to go before the board before that gets utilized.
So essentially, you're saying that if the board were to vote yes, that there are surplus funds available for the school to use for this study.
I think the study is a separate issue that we're trying to perceive to bring to the board first. The board kind of isn't even aware of some of this. So the foundation comes up with the idea to move this forward, which we've been doing right along, but it's difficult to ask them, you know, we need to present to them. We can't just say, hey, we want to do this. They're going to say, well, how much is it? And then we need to provide that number to them in order for us to move forward. When we have a plan that we can move forward with constituents that would then donate to the Spalding High School Foundation from all over the place, from the alumni that have here that have heartfelt feelings for what's going on here. I've done this with many of the communications. It'd be nice to be able to say, here's what we're doing. Here's the plan. What we're trying to do is get the plan. And then the board will vote on it, and how much the school board or the city, you know, the town folks will need to pay will be dependent upon what is raised from the foundation. We're hoping nothing in a perfect world.
I guess just my generalized question is that we're looking at a very small pot of money here to $200,000 essentially for community innovation, where the school budget has a surplus of potentially millions of dollars, that this small ask could potentially be covered by that. So I'm just asking why it hasn't been brought to the school board for approval instead of the city.
Well, I think Ed talked about this. It's, if we go to if it's presented to the school board, the immediate question is, well, how much is it going to cost? And this is the kickoff point to answer those questions. So I think in order to get that conversation started, those questions need to be answered first so that we can actually take it to its full completion.
I think when I answered the question on section 3, which asked the projects that you're looking for, projects that demonstrate broad community impact, that will be prioritized. Projects should result in demonstrable civic improvements that foster recreation, community pride, housing, and/or support to underserved, high-need population. And we've all known what housing and all the populations are here. But my response was simply upgrading the SHS athletic campus will be a boost for the city of Barre in several ways, not only for the student and the community use of the facility, which will provide safe access to recreational activities and social gatherings, as evidenced by the lights have done so far, but the augmentation of the campus will be a draw to the area for future families looking to move here. We've seen that through Barre area development, trying to promote to live, work, and visit Barre. I ask, what are the social costs of not supporting an initiative to enhance the athletic facility of your dual community public high school? This is a tangible, real opportunity for making a positive impact on a broad basis to our community that has yet to come to fruition, has been kicked down the road a little bit. So I'm trying to tie in the foundation's ask, not necessarily the school, because when the letters of interest were requested, I, as a representative of the foundation, saw that as an opportunity to use some of the innovation funds that you're putting out to the community to do a project like this.
And just for the record, I support your project. I'm just a little concerned with the funding revenue or the funding stream.
It's a small ask for a big project.
I understand that.
We appreciate your consideration.
So you've gotten quotes for the scope in terms of you want to update the master plan. You're going to go to an engineering firm to scope the costs. Have you gotten quotes from engineering firms?
No, everything that we have so far is 10 years old.
2012, yeah.
Right.
But we know that, you know, with the flood mitigation and the stormwater runoff issues and the permitting that's necessary for these types of things, that it's going to cost a little bit to find these new construction costs.
And then in addition to that, it's actually getting an engineer out, laying everything out, and so they're construction-ready documents. So we can go forward and plan out the different phases. Anything else?
All right.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
So I think we've had Sage, the Sage School is back.
Emily.
Emily is back, yeah.
Hello, thank you for having me tonight.
Thank you, yeah. Feel free to present your project.
Thank you so much. So Sage Mountain Botanical Sanctuary, we're located in Orange. We have a 600-acre facility. We've been providing educational programs since 1997, and we are a 501c3 nonprofit. In summer and fall of 2022, we received a federal and state grant to launch a pilot after-school program. It's called After School in Nature. We meet Monday through Friday. We have students from Barre City and Barre Town, as well as a few students from Orange enrolled in the program. And our application for ARPA funding is to enhance our facility so that we can increase our capacity. We uniquely provide a program that is geared towards students who don't otherwise have access and opportunity to outdoor education. So most of the students enrolled in our program are from low-income families. We provide transportation from Barre City Elementary Middle School to our facility. And then at the end of the day, we also provide transportation taking students home in time for dinner. And we have 20 students currently, capacity for 20 students, 12 of those students from Barre City Elementary Middle. Our age range is grades 4 through 8. Yeah, we are excited to be entering our second year of the program next year. The grant, the state and federal money that we received to launch the pilot program was a one-year program. We have some private foundation funds that are continuing for multi-year grants. And we're also in the process of obtaining our licensure through DCF as a after-school childcare facility so that we can take the funds that we were receiving from the grant, which we were providing full scholarships to many families, and be able to have those families have access to childcare financial assistance through the licensure.
Any questions? Councilor Deering.
The project that you're doing that's $355,000, what exactly are you doing for that? I'm just curious what the overall project is.
Yeah, so the overall project, well, the project budget for the cost of the project is basically developing capital infrastructure, expanding our facility. We currently have an outdoor classroom that will be winterizing in the fall of this year. So we're currently going through contracting and site plans for those. And anticipate groundbreaking on that construction in 2024 to be completed by fall of that year. So a full nature center with exhibits, as well as an outdoor classroom space that's winterized for the youth to be able to have a space where they can continue to learn through the winter.
Thank you. I really appreciate that.
Any other questions? Did you mention how much it costs for a student to be involved in this program?
Yeah, Mayor Hendrick. So we currently have a sliding scale tuition of $20 to $75 per week based on the family's income. So $20 a week would be kids that would qualify for free lunch outside of the current universal free lunch program, 75 per week being what we call tier one, families that, you know, maybe have multiple income streams and ability for transportation and the like. I will say that of the 12 students from Barre City Elementary Middle currently enrolled in the program, all 12 are what we call tier three, that $20 per week range, but I would say 8 to 9 of those 12 are also being subsidized with additional scholarship funding from our grant. So the families are not actually paying for transportation costs or for tuition for the program.
Oh, thank you for that. Appreciate it. Any other questions? Councilor Deering?
Was Orange approached for ARPA funding?
Orange's call for ARPA funding, I was actually at the time a member of the select board. That took place in late 2021 and early 2022, which was prior to us launching the pilot program. So they did do a call for funding, which we did not submit for this project because we didn't have the project launched at that point.
Thank you, Miss.
Thank you. Any other questions? All right. That takes us to our last and biggest ask, Barre Community Baseball Softball. Welcome.
Thank you. Jordan Bergeron, Barre Community Baseball Softball. I'm the president of the board. Appreciate you having us here, giving us this opportunity. I'd like to just give you a little bit of background information about our program and what we do. For those of you who don't know who we are a nonprofit program, 100% volunteer driven. Our mission really is to provide high quality, competitive and developmental baseball and softball programs for children ages 4 and up. Our goals are to encourage and help our youth to develop physically through team practices and games, emotionally through growth and positive self-image, and socially through the development of friendships and interaction with positive adult role models. We strive to make our program accessible to all children. We offer scholarships through our program, so cost is not a barrier for participation for any child. We serve children primarily in Barre City and Barre Town, as well as Williamstown, Orange, Washington, and some other surrounding towns. BCBS has been in operation for about 33 years after the merging of Granite City Little League and Green Mountain Little League, and we're proud to serve our community's children. Our primary programs are spring season teams, which is what's going on right now, kind of our regular season. I want to give you some numbers so you can get a picture of how many kids we have that participate. We have our T-ball program is for our ages 4 and 5. Right now we have 5 teams, and that's made up of 55 kids that are ages 4 to 5. The next tier up is our coach pitch program. That's for ages 6 to 7. We have 6 teams that are made up of 60 kids total. The next level up in baseball, once we get to the ages of 8 or so, then they split into softball and baseball. So T-ball coach pitches co-ed. Minors baseball, we have 52 boys in the age range of 8 to 10. So we have 5 Barre teams in that level of our program. The majors baseball, which is kind of true little league that everybody is probably most familiar with, that's ages 10 to 12. We have 44 boys making up 4 teams in our Barre program for that. On the softball side of things, we have 1 minor softball team, so that's girls ages 7 to 9. We have 15 girls on that team. And likewise with the major softball, so ages 10 to 12 girls, we have 1 team that has about 15 girls on that as well. So right now in our spring season, we have 241 boys and girls between the ages of 4 and 12 that are playing. I'd say it's about 40% of that is Barre City, about 40 and 40 for Barre City, Barre Town, and the remaining percentage is kind of those outlying villages and towns around us. So really good participation numbers. We're pretty proud of that. This summer we'll have multiple all-star teams that will be representing Barre at the Little League tournaments throughout the state. We have summer baseball and softball teams that go and compete against other towns. We host other towns here for competitions. Our fall baseball program continues to be a success. Last year we had 4 baseball teams and 2 softball teams. And we've also started a winter baseball training program. So every year we also offer some preseason clinics, and those are free. We put those on for anybody who wants to come out and try the sport. So in the last calendar year, we've actually offered 16 distinct programs with a total of 409 registrants, and that's 263 individual children between the ages of 4 to 16. And again, about 40% of those are Barre City youth. We maintain practice and game fields throughout Barre City and Barre Town. The lighting project that we're proposing here at Bond Field is really kind of our kickoff of a vision of many projects that we hope to revitalize the fields and help make Barre a destination for baseball and softball teams as well as tournaments. We see this as a great opportunity to boost the Barre youth sports programs and the community as a whole. It'll be especially beneficial to us in the spring and fall months when we lose daylight early. This will allow us to provide more hours of healthy developmental activities for our youth participants. And we feel this project would really make Barre a top youth sports destination in the state. We would be able to grow our program by attracting and retaining more participants. And baseball is a great means for children just to get that physical exercise and interact with other peers their age, developing those social and emotional skills that we're really trying to shoot for as part of our mission statement. And this also would make Bond Field a top candidate to host local and state tournaments, which we feel in turn would bring in visitors to the Barre community and boost the local businesses and economy, bringing in people instead of just for a quick day trip for one game on a Saturday afternoon. Maybe we can get them to hang around for a whole weekend. We have also been investing resources in Cornerstone Field at Rotary Park. That's the one over by Barre City School. We've been able to successfully make that field playable again. It's been a huge asset for our program. We're actually working right now with the Central Vermont Career Center, the building trades program, to build some dugouts for us. That's been a partnership between us that we're working on. We've also got a scoreboard there on the wish list. This field would also be utilized if we successfully were given the opportunity to host a tournament. Lincoln Field is our only softball facility, again owned by Barre City. Both of these are on our list to upgrade, but we feel it all starts with being able to upgrade our flagship field, if you will, up at Bond Field. If we can successfully invest in Bond Field, we'll be able to increase our program revenue and participation, which will in turn allow us to continue to grow and invest in these other locations. We cannot do it on our own, and we hope you'll see this as an opportunity for us to put this plan in action. We really thank you for our consideration, your consideration. And as our closing comment, I want to just share a quote that I got from one of our kids in our program, which I think kind of sums everything up great. I've got permission to share his name. It's Garrett Ross. He's a 2nd grade student at Barre City School. He participates in our baseball minors program. And so we asked him what he thought of Barre baseball. And he said, "Barre baseball is important to me because I want to play baseball just like my brother Hayden did. I want to learn more about baseball from coaches, make new friends, and have fun.
When I get older, I want to play on the big field under the lights like my brother.
Thank you. You really brought the numbers. Appreciate it.
Absolutely, thank
much.
you.
Any questions? Councilor Shambo?
Has Barre Town been approached for funding?
Yes.
And their response?
So it is pending. We reached out, we made contact with them, and we were advised that we would be put into consideration. Barre Town has done, though they haven't been, directly contributing to this project yet, they have been a contributor to our program in other ways. They're helping us to restore the Barre Town Little League field up on Barre Town, and they're also investing 100% of their own funds in repairing the lighting on the Babe Ruth field up there as well.
You use the field on off Merchant Street?
We
too?
do, yeah,
Okay,
that's
right.
Bailey Field. We use that
Okay.
for a lot of our minors events right now, but privately owned, so knock on wood, so far, we can continue using it, but it is kind of one of the reasons why Cornerstone Field has been one of our top targets, to get that, to possibly fill in for that if we lose the capability there.
What is the arrangement with Bond Field? Is that a long-term lease? Is it a?
Great question. Yeah, it's as of now just kind of a indefinite arrangement with the family who owns it. They gave us full control, if you will, to do what we want with it, and so we've in partnership with BYSA put some money into it on the sheds that are there, and but as far as we know, there is a long-term arrangement that we don't foresee ending at any point.
Right. But there's nothing in writing right now that would preclude it from ending.
As far as I know, yes.
Okay, great. Thank you.
I think Councilor Booton has his hand up first.
Councilor
and then I'll
Booton
go.
and then Councilor Deering?
Yeah, so regarding the park on Merchant Street, the setup, it's privately owned, just like Bond Field is, correct?
Correct.
Is there any particular, just out of curiosity, any particular reason why you didn't ask for funds to fix up that field versus the Bond Field? Because that field is way more, it's less attractive and
For sure.
than the Bond Field is, and it's actually used, I believe, mainly by the softball team, correct? Is that?
So the Bailey Field on Merchant Street is used only by our minors baseball program. It is privately owned, and like I've said, it's not as comfortably in our control, I guess you could say. Bond Field, yes, it is newer, it is in better condition, but it's also, as I said, our flagship program. It's actually our only field that we use for the Little League program, which is the kind of the primary program for our majors ages 10 to 12. That is a field where we can host tournaments. We have a concession stand. We see that as having the best potential to, further maximize its potential and actually give us a chance to, bring in revenue with utilizing the concessions, hosting tournaments. Just seems more feasible and better served putting the funds in there.
Councilor Deering?
So have you had a chance to review the lease with the bond at all?
I have not, no.
Okay, so I'll just give you some information. I have the lease. It expires in 2030, and then there are 3-year increments.
Yep.
Also in the lease, under the section GC 31, and I found this out today, or I would have put it in the packet and had that. The rules and regulations for D say a tenant shall not conduct sports practices, games, or activities on the leased premises except during daylight hours between sunrise and sunset. Do you think the Bond family would be amenable to that in the lease?
I believe so, yeah. They've been great over the years. They're completely supportive of our program and investing money into it. I don't foresee any issues with that. I would imagine, if anything, that's probably a safety issue that they would want to put that in there to avoid people going there at dusk, trespassing, essentially trying to play baseball at night, probably protecting themselves. I think if we approached them with the proposal, that they would be amenable to it.
Councilor Wozniak?
Yeah, this has I know it's late, we all want to go home, but this has nothing to do with the request. I live at the house that abuts the property next to
okay.
the field on Merchant Street.
Gotcha.
And one of my favorite things about living there is that we can hear the Little League games going.
Right.
And so like I can sit in my backyard and basically attend it. And like, it's always a fun sign that summer's coming.
Yeah.
Is hearing those kids and hearing all the cheering of the parents, and it's
Love
just,
it, yeah.
has nothing to do with this, but it's very fun. So
Yeah,
wanted
no, I
thank
love to hear that. Thank you.
Okay, if there are no other questions, thanks for the great presentation.
All right, appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for hanging in there.
No, thank
Yeah,
you.
what a meeting, right?
Speaking of hanging on,
All right, so we got it.
Stephanie.
We got 3 more items. We're probably gonna need to table one, but let's get to the TIF update.
Thank you, Mayor. So we have Stephanie Clark and David White are joining us on Zoom, and Janet is part of our internal team on TIF. She's also hanging in with us.
Hello.
Had to be here.
Because she loves the meeting.
She was working back there, I noticed, I was.
So.
Hey,
thank you.
everybody.
Turn it over to Stephanie.
Hey, Stephanie.
Yeah, good to see you all. Thanks for having us. So I'll introduce David White on the call as well. This is David, the president of White and Burke. So he has worked with Barre before, back in 2012, 2010, whenever we were doing the initial application. He got involved and was helpful then. So I am here to just chat through where we're at with this process, but also turn things over to him for a few months, because I'm due any day now. You can't see it, but she's here, and we're we're not sure when she'll make her appearance. So I'm wanting to turn over the reins to David. So basically, as I explained in the memo, I'm going to keep this part short, just because I think if you've read the memo, it was pretty self-explanatory, but we'll be really wanting to take your questions about this. Essentially, as most of you know, we've been working on economic development efforts in the city for the last several years, and we've chased down some possible leads. We've done some studies, we've done more research, we've done a lot of outreach, and just where we're at now, which is what, mid-pandemic, post-pandemic, something here, timing wise, we just know that conditions have just been really challenging for a long time. And we also know that the TIF tool is out there, and it's been a great, powerful tool for the city. It has capacity to continue to be a great tool, and legislature has just, I think it's still pending the governor's signature, but it has authorized the 2-year extension to allow us to incur debt for a few more years. So there's more potential, there's more opportunity we want to explore, and maybe using TIF, maybe using other tools as well. But to do that, what we've kind of come to is that we're going to try a different approach. And this was summarized in the memo with an additional document that we're calling the scoping document, but essentially wanting to get boots on the ground beyond the capacity of White and Burke as an external consultant, beyond the capacity of your staff who have a lot of other responsibilities, and try to get the word out about the city's ability to help with TIF, help support development with either TIF or other tools. So White and Burke is going to put together this action team, downtown action team, that's basically a group of stakeholders that can help us do that. And that would be, it's a model that's being used successfully in other communities. It uses the group to talk about opportunities to actually increase the viability of a project, or like vet the viability of a project a little bit better and get us in front of the right people. So David is going to lead this up and put together some folks with the assistance of staff and council's input. But I'll let him talk briefly, just very briefly, about kind of how he's been able to use this model elsewhere, and then I'll circle back. David?
Thank you, Stephanie. But before I talk about TIF and action groups, I just want to say that tomorrow, and this may seem irrelevant initially, is my 42nd wedding anniversary. What's relevant about that is that 46 years ago, on Thursday, I met my wife in Barre.
Wow.
She was living in Barre at the time. I was living in Marshfield. And we met at a fundraising dance for a local nonprofit group at a place some of you may remember that doesn't exist anymore. It burned down, called Country Cousins. So I'll tell you that I have very, very fond feelings about Barre because it has this important element in my personal life. So having said all that, which has nothing to do with TIF whatsoever, except that Country Cousins was right in the heart of downtown on Main Street, talk a little bit about where we're going with this. So one of the realities as external consultants is that we will never know any community where we work as well as local people do. You know, you folks have relationships with business people, with property owners, with each other, and you have the ability to open doors and have conversations that, you know, we just don't. And part of the challenge that Stephanie has had in the last few years is that, you know, she calls people, and even with an introduction from somebody, you know, they've got other priorities and they don't necessarily return the call. They don't necessarily respond as well. The experience that we've been having in recent years suggests to us that one of the most powerful ways of breaking through those barriers and to start to find other opportunities is to have local people have the conversations with their friends, with their professional colleagues, with their business associates, to say, hey, you know, there's this opportunity. What are you thinking about? How might your business grow? Have you had ideas about what to do with your property? What are the barriers? What are the issues? And that if we have a working group or action group of local people to make those calls, that White and Burke, myself, Stephanie, when she returns, et cetera, we can be the coaches because we know how these things come together. We can do the financial analysis. We can work on feasibility stuff. And if there's a viable project, we can then prepare the applications to go to the Vermont Economic Progress Council, VEPSI, to get approvals and so forth to move forward. You know, those are things that we have specific skills in, but what you folks and local people have specific skills in or ability that we just don't have are the relationships. And so what we're proposing here is this action group or action committee or working group, whatever term you want to use, of local people with whom we will meet on a routine basis. And I'll do this over the next several months, and presumably Stephanie will pick it back up from me eventually. We'll see how that unfolds over time, but that we will work and meet, you know, probably once every couple of weeks. The details aren't worked out yet in this specific circumstance. It depends on people's availability and all that, but with only 2 years extension, that sounds like a lot of time, but let me tell you, 2 years is not a lot of time. We need to move, we need to move rapidly. We need to find the projects. Now, I will add another detail here and then I'll turn it back to Stephanie. But the important detail here is that I know that a lot of emphasis has been placed on a couple of properties that were deemed to be high priorities. And I get it. I believe, I agree that those are high priority projects, but at this point, they don't look viable. So forget it. I would not pursue those things. This is not about the most important project. This is about projects that can actually be accomplished. I think of them as, you know, the terms I use is, you know, low-hanging fruit. Even if it's something small, if it can be accomplished, let's do it. Let's get it done. Let's focus on those things. If there's somebody who wants to do a duplex that is in the TIF district or whatever, let's do it. If they're, you know, it's about the low-hanging fruit. And no longer can we spend the time because there's only 2 years left. So I would totally ignore what we all acknowledge may be important projects, but if the owners aren't feeling motivated to do anything, just stop. It's not worth spending the time. Let's move in other directions. That's where I am today. That could shift if those owners come back in a different perspective, but that's where I am today and with regard to this. So having said all that, turn it back to Stephanie.
Yep. Thank you,
And
David.
my idea here is to focus on, let's make a lot of contacts, and I will help coach and mentor local people to make those contacts and for us to move forward.
Thank you, David. So, yeah, I think there's not really an ask tonight. This is kind of a check-in. We did a check-in a few months ago, and this is kind of just a point in time, progress update. But we have reached out to BADC and also the Central Vermont Economic Development Corps to ask that they participate, and they seem game. And so we'll be reaching out to them following tonight's meeting to start like assembling the actual team. And we think it's very critical. The experience David's had in other communities is to get the involvement of the mayor and a city councilor, one or two city councilors to be involved from the administration side, to get involved and to be not only advising, but also just, be able to be a point of contact. So it would be great to have the mayor, and also Councillor Lozon has been involved with these efforts now for so many years, both in the original, when we originally put the TIF together, but also in recent years in helping us figure out some of these economic development challenges. And so those were the first two that came to mind when we were putting together an initial list, but we're also open, I think we can have 3 city councilors on the team and not be subject to any open meeting laws or anything like that, because this is going to be kind of a nimble, scrappy group in my vision. So we're just looking tonight for some input on if there's anybody else who wanted to participate, but also if you have any other suggestions of anybody else who should participate that we should ask from the community. And these would specifically be people to help us make contacts. They're not the full list of the actual contacts we're going to be making, which is a much longer list.
Right. This is not about the property owners or developers. This is about
Correct.
the people who may know them. This is about people who can make the contacts.
And that I'm saying this at 9:55 p.m. If that's putting you on the spot today, that's also okay to not answer tonight. If you would prefer to send us an email or send it to Nicholas and have him pass it along, that's also okay for suggestions. I think David will probably start putting this team together, like he said, in the next couple of weeks.
Just council, think about it. If you are interested, just submitting an email to Nicholas, and then we could just tack this on as a quick discussion item next Tuesday. Unless would that meet your timelines, Whitenberg?
Yeah, absolutely. Yep.
Sure.
No problem.
All right.
Okay.
Any other questions for Councilor Deering?
Just think that you guys should include the Barre partnership in that group. They're very in touch with a lot of the businesses.
Thank you. Yep. That actually, Carol and Janet and I were just talking about that yesterday. Yes, good point. I haven't reached out to them yet, but I will, or we will.
And I think having key internal staff members, such as the manager and so forth, is also important, just so they're constantly in touch.
Yeah, and I think between myself, Carol, and Janet, we'll continue to be very close with this group.
Great.
All right.
Well,
Thanks,
for the
everybody.
update. Really helpful. Thanks for sticking with us.
Yeah, you bet. Good luck with the rest of your agenda.
Nothing like a crisis, so.
Congratulations, Stephanie.
Yeah.
Oh, thank you. I'll see you all in the fall.
Thank you both.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.
So that takes us
Bye.
to the ordinance. Yeah, bye, David. Thanks.
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, this should, hopefully this could be quick. If you look at the memo page, 71 in our packet, basically based off the conversations from first reading, and I confirmed at the end of last council meeting that there were 8 total edits requested of the ordinance. 7 of them were done because one of them ended up being redundant by the time we looked at the language. So just running through quickly, standardizing the definition of minority groups to be in compliant or to be consistent with federal and state law, and that that first bullet point in the red, that is the definition of minority group from the Federal Office of, I believe it's Management and Budget, which is my least favorite federal agency name, but I'll get to that later. clarifying that federal and state law or federal and state rules and regulations supersede the ordinance. That's the second bullet point. There was a request for a 2/3 majority of the council being needed to override. That has been added, bullet point 3. Bullet point 4 is the striking. Councilor Lozon brought up the point that, if the workers' comp law is law, then why have to restate it, which is a good point. So we struck that reference to the law. Councilor Lozon also brought up the Davis-Bacon and related acts. So section 24(3)(a)(6) has been amended to say that any projects, contractors, subcontractors, et cetera, that are receiving money from the federal government must be in compliance with the Davis-Bacon and related acts to the extent required by law, because there's some different, depending on what the project is and how much money, regulations change a little bit. Veterans was added to the list of eligible demographics to qualify for the incentive. Councilor Stockwell asked for people with disabilities to be added to that list as well, which was done. And then you also asked for it to be done in 24(1)(d), but that became redundant based off the language of adding it to the first bullet point. And then lastly, Councilor Lozon asked about what if they have folks working remotely, et cetera. So it was amended to be the exit and entry tracking of employees are for those physically on the job site. So those were all the edits and they've all been incorporated. So happy to answer more questions, but I think we're ready to roll.
Council,
Move to adopt?
there's a motion to adopt.
Second.
There's a second. Is there any further discussion?
Still struggling with it, Teddy. I mean, I question when I do the research into what other municipalities, well, first of all, I don't know that they've really experienced a big difference. But one of my concerns is that by adding additional regulatory burdens, are we actually hurting the people we're trying to help? So that a smaller business, not a piece of galley construction that's got administration up the wazoo, with a $200,000 threshold, are we making it burdensome for a smaller business to apply to, who may be doing the right thing, or are we going to make it difficult for them to do business with the city? That's my struggle right now.
I hear that concern, but I think that for, how many of these small businesses would be going out of their way to take on a big project like this, I don't know. We know that businesses all over the place are struggling to recruit employees. So I see this in sort of a different light, that it actually would make it more attractive to do business with the city because we're offering better benefits and better pay than a project of equivalent scale that might be happening in a municipality that doesn't have this ordinance. That would, we heard from a resident last hearing of wanting to do more of this work in Barre, but not being able to because the wages and the benefits just weren't sufficient. So I think that this addresses that. And I understand the concern. I think it's a very basic, just speaking very frankly, it's a very basic political difference that I might have with some members of the council in our comfort level with regulations on businesses, and I accept that. So, I think that we did a lot of work to get this to a place where everyone's concerns were heard and incorporated. So, I hear you. I'd still ask for your vote, but if not, I get it.
There's a motion and a second. Is there further discussion? Councilor Booton.
Yeah, I mean, I'm a no, but Teddy already knows that, so.
All right, anybody else?
I got a question.
Councilor Deering.
What problem have we seen that this ordinance is addressing?
Wage stagnation for the past 50+ years.
Is it happening in Barre? Like, is this an actual thing that we need to create? I'm just asking, we create laws and we have problems.
I'm not trying to be flip with the answer, but it is true that we've seen wage stagnation across the country over the past 50 years. Dollars just don't go as far as they used to, and wages have not kept up with that. So I think that what this does is, would I phrase it as solving a problem? I don't know. Would I phrase it as incentivizing businesses to have better business practice if they're going to do business with the city? Yes. Does it raise wage? Does it make sure that folks are getting paid better wages than the minimum wage, which is insufficient? Yes. And does it provide more benefits than otherwise would without the ordinance? And yes. And, you know, Barre has historically been a higher poverty community as compared to the rest of the state, or at least major municipalities within the state. So I think that that's the problem that's being addressed, is that folks have been underpaid for work for a long time. And this is a statement that says the city's not going to be one of those business dealers.
Councilor Stockwell?
And I would add to that, that certainly one of the reasons people are homeless is because there's just not enough housing. But the other reason is because minimum wage, and even above minimum wage, you cannot afford a place to live if you're making minimum wage. So the more that we make this a city where people have to be paid above that, the better off we are, and the better off the citizens of Barre are, if we offer some guarantees for people who work here. The people who are most likely to be taken advantage of.
Putting on my head is, you know, somebody who's pretty frugal. I also think, you know, looking at this from a more conservative viewpoint, there are potential release valves in certain circumstances that allow when the ordinance doesn't quite fit or match up exactly with the interests of the city, that there's a way to there's some flex. And I think this is a great starting point in that sense, and then an opportunity to test and see and learn. But there are those waiver provisions. So, all right. If hearing and seeing no other comments, we have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed?
Nay.
Nay.
To do a.
And I'll do a division. Council Booton?
Nay.
Council Deering?
Nay.
Council Lozon?
Nay.
Council Chambel?
Yes.
Councilor Stockwell?
Yes.
Councilor Wazazak?
Yes.
I'm a yes. That takes us to the authorization for 45K and undesignated fund balance to purchase replacement fire gear with Chief Fishman.
Chief, I'm sorry.
I tried, Chief.
I know, he did try. He did try.
Hey,
He knew, he
Like
knew.
questions, man.
No, and I only had one question, which I should have asked it under the,
You're fired.
Impeach, you know.
no, I was just wondering, like, of all the, so we have the undesignated fund balance, we have tremendous capital needs. I was curious, how did this stack up against citywide capital needs? And why is it an urgent request?
Yeah, so this is, we actually, that's a preview of upcoming business, which is at the next meeting, we plan to have an update for the council on our implementation of the capital plan thus far. And we're likely going to be asking for a transfer into the capital fund for the remaining balance above the 5%, because of those needs. So the reason we're asking to designate fund balance here is because this is a, to the extent there are one-time costs, this is pretty close to one. This is the last time fire gear was fully purchased was 10 years ago after a gear was damaged or was compromised with asbestos during a fire. So that required a replacement. We've now hit those next 10 years and the gear has that useful life of 10 years. So it was basically an unfortunate cycle that landed us here. This is too big of an expense to really absorb in the fire and EMS department budget. So for my judgment, this was an appropriate use of fund balance because it is a fairly unusual purchase of this size. The chief can speak to this a little bit more, but Lieutenant Kruger is working on a more cyclical basis so that this can be incorporated into the usual replacement of gear, so that we're not hit with these big amounts. But this was really a situation of circumstance that caused basically all the gear to have an expiration at now. So yeah, and the urgency is, this is still an area of the supply chain that is not recovered. So Chief mentioned, I think we're several months out from receipt, even after we place this order. So.
And so once the equipment expires, there's a safety risk for the
Yes,
firefighters.
correct. Yeah, so the firefighters could become exposed to very dangerous materials, cancer-causing materials. That's why the gear is as thick as it is and why it required replacement after a particular fire where there had been compromise to that equipment.
It'll get programmed as a now into the capital expense.
Yeah, Chief Cushman and Lieutenant Kruger has been assigned, I believe, to work on a more cyclical replacement cycle so that we don't get hit with these large spikes. I mean, the other piece of this is that the firefighters all have two sets of gear for multiple reasons. Many times it's not to, hopefully we don't have two responses back to back, but due to the nature of their work, they're in areas where their gear can become punctured, so then it has to go out for repair, so then they have to have a backup set. So this is really a matter of, right now we were hit sort of with the circumstance of the gear expiring at the same time. We're gonna work, when the chief brought this forward as a need, we talked about making sure that we can do this on a more cyclical basis moving forward.
Any other questions?
Motion to approve.
Second.
There's a motion and a second.
I was just kind of curious how much we might be potentially looking at over the 5%.
That's still, we'll have the final numbers next week, but it'll be, there will be 6 digits comfortably. I'm not sure what the first digit will be, but there will be 6 numbers, 3 numbers, comma, 3 more numbers.
All right, well, at least it's not a period in between with the 3 numbers.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it'll be large. I mean, and I, just a preview for next week, look, this is, I remember the meetings I was attended remotely from New York before I started this job. I remember talking about this, one of my first meetings. I'm sure Don will repeat this as well. We'd rather not have this surplus. The reason we have the surplus because we can't hire. And so we'd rather not have it, but the fact that we have it, we think is important to be able to use it for longstanding needs. And unfortunately, it continues to be large, and we hope next year we don't have to have that discussion, that we've fully staffed and we're, because that's addressing other needs we have.
Thank you.
All right, so that takes us to upcoming.
Aye.
We got
Let's vote on it.
Oh, yeah. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Yeah. All right, so next meeting.
And thank you, Keith.
Really important items. Thanks, Chief.
Thank you all. Love you, Chief.
We're gonna have committee interviews will be a big focus on the 6th. Well, I'm talking about the 6th now because we're also meeting next week. But committee interviews are the big focus there, and then the capital improvement implementation as well will be coming there. We'll have an update for. I think we've had a successful start. It's been a great planning document for us at the department head level. So that'll be the other big item on the agenda.
And you'll get my annual Sing for My
Oh,
Supper.
yes. It's time for Carol's last race. At least for the city. All right, so Councilor Schaumburg, round table. That's a pass. Councilor Jenkins.
I've spent a lot of amazing time at Farwell Field lately with my young daughter playing soccer. And I have to say, it's been beautiful. I'll end with that.
Councilor Booten.
Pass.
Councilor Wozniak.
Yeah, just to, Counselor Lozon and Deering, even though you voted no on that ordinance, you offered some good edits that I think made it stronger, so I appreciate that. I'll pass.
Councilor Stockwell.
Just wanted to thank Nicholas and the entire crew for working on a plan that it really can avert this fairly enormous human tragedy, but I really appreciate your efforts. Outstanding work.
Councilor Lozon.
I'm good.
And with that, I'll pass too. It's late. So
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
motion to adjourn in a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye. Good night, Don. Good night, Michael. Good night, Ryan. Good night, Keith. Good night, Lisa. Good night, Sandy. Good night, Rosemary. Good night, Vern.
Trust that.
Oh, you don't?